I would like to open this meeting. It's a Howell Township Council meeting. Today is November 30th, and I would like to call this meeting to order.
This meeting is being held in accordance with Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, the Open Public Meetings Act. Adequate notice has been provided by transmitting the resolution of annual meetings to the Asbury Park Press, the Star Ledger, and the Tri-Town News by posting it on the bulletin board reserved for such announcements in the Township Municipal Building and filing it with the municipal clerk on January 8, 2021. This agenda is complete to the extent known, and formal action will be taken.
Would we like to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance? And then a moment of silence for all of our fallen heroes.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call?
Councilman Bonovich,
Present.
Councilwoman O'Donnell,
Here.
Councilwoman Richmond.
Here.
And Mayor Berger.
Present.
So as all of you are aware, on November the 6th, Deputy Mayor Russo tendered his resignation as a member of the Township Council. That set into to play a process which is outlined by the statutes of the state of New Jersey. Within 15 days after the effective date of that resignation, the municipal committee has 15 days to submit to the governing body the names of 3 nominees to fill that position. On November 17th, Joe DeBello, is the chair of the Howell Township Republican County Committee, submitted the names of Ms. Suzanne Brennan, Dr. Daniel Cardelicchio, and Mr. John Leggio, all in accordance with NJSA 40A:16-3. The governing body has 30 days from the vacancy, which would be December 6th, to appoint one of those nominees. And if the governing body fails to make the appointment, then the municipal committee after December 6th will have all authority to appoint that individual. So the first resolution presented for you for your consideration is resolution number 21-377, which would be the resolution to fill the vacancy on the Township Council.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Suzanne Brennan to the vacant seat.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so Councilwoman Richmond made a motion to appoint Suzanne Brennan, and it was seconded by Councilwoman O'Donnell. Is there any discussion? You ready
For us or the public?
for you?
No?
You ready for the vote?
Yes, sir.
Councilwoman Bonovich?
Woman? No.
Councilman Bonovich?
No.
Councilwoman O'Donnell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
No.
And resolution 21-377 has failed.
I have a question, if I may. Does
Yes.
this now, it does not open to the public, or it does? I'm not sure. Only because it's just, we have not done it this way before, so I'm just asking the
The
protocol.
public can comment during the designated public comment
Later on
portion
in
of the
the-
meeting.
But
Right.
later on, not at this point, is my question.
That is correct.
Thank you.
That is correct. So you're going to
Because
now...
it says, it says comments on the sheet, that's why I'm asking.
So it is a formal meeting, and during every formal meeting of the governing body, there is a portion of time set aside for public comments. I do not believe it is that... Right, that is actually going to be after the executive
Okay,
session.
okay, thank you.
Could we make a reconsideration to appoint another one of the 3, or no?
could.
I'd like to reconsider and make the motion for Mr. Leggio for council.
Mr. Clerk, is there, after Councilman Bonavich's reconsideration, is there comment? Can we have conversation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So Councilman Bonovich has made a motion to appoint Mr. Leggio, Mr. John Leggio, to the council vacant seat. Is there a second?
Do I step down, or do I just second, since I'm not just asking.
No, you don't need to step
I
down.
don't need to step down, so
No.
I second. I will second the motion.
Moved by Councilman Bonovich, seconded by Deputy Mayor Russo. Is there any discussion?
I think I'm burgered tonight.
Oh, my goodness.
It's all good.
So that was my second faux pas. This is my last. I
One more,
apologize.
and then you're done.
Is there any discussion?
Well, actually, yes, if I might. My understanding is the process that County Committee went through, which I was a part of as County Committee of District 5. We had a nomination that we were given by the County Committee, and our obligation was to set forward that particular name, which we did. However, it did fail. So my question for due diligence and for process is, would we need, this will go back to county committee, or I presume the
The chair.
county chair, at what point he then would make the decision, is that correct?
So the process is they submitted to this body 3 names. So
Correct.
you can choose from one of those 3 individuals.
Correct.
If at the end of the day, all 3 names are not, or one of the 3 are not put into place, then after the expiration of the 30-day period, then the county chair will appoint who the county committee decides to put into that position.
And that person will be sworn in at the next council
And
meeting,
that
correct?
person will be sworn in immediately and become a member immediately.
Correct.
Mr. Harris, what is the exact date of that? Obviously, it's going to be the appointment. What is the exact date, just for the record?
December the 6th.
December the 6th. So
Special.
December the 6th, the chairman will obviously call you, and immediately that candidate, that vacancy will be filled immediately?
Immediately.
Which means no need for a special meeting, it'll just happen as per the procedure.
Right.
There will be no need for a special meeting. There will be no
Okay.
required vote. It will be an immediate filling of that seat.
Okay. Okay. So before we do a roll call, just to set the record straight and piggyback off what Councilwoman O'Donnell said, in case the public is not aware of the process, which most of you probably do, County Committee already had spoken, so while we will go back to the County Committee, it's really just a formality because we've already had that meeting. The County Committee has already voted. For those of you who do not know, everybody who is a registered Republican had an opportunity to submit a letter of intent. We received 3 letters of intent. That's it. So our County Committee took the time to meet with our 3, I think, exceptional candidates. Again, I'll speak on behalf of Mr. Leggio. I appointed him to the planning board. I think he's a great candidate. Unfortunately, right now, this is a time for him to learn, him to groom, him to participate in meetings and get more involved. The other 2 candidates, obviously, you can laugh all you want, Mayor.
No,
She didn't laugh.
Excuse me.
She didn't laugh.
Okay, John, please don't defend her. Anyway, my point of the matter is the public has the expectations that
A cough.
we are, only when I'm speaking, it's always a cough.
Okay.
Under the impression that we are putting forth someone that the public does not want, okay, and the public voted, but it's not up to the public, it's up to the county committee. And we voted, the county committee voted, Mr. Leggio was there, Mr. Cardelicchio was there, Susan Brennan was there, they were all there. We watched the process take place. We submitted 3 names. We ranked them according to the votes, and the names that were submitted were in that order. So if anyone thinks that anything is being done underhandedly, that is not the case. This is how the process works. It's the statute, as Mr. Harris has so eloquently described. So we can sit here and we could reconsider, and we can play games, or we can get back to the business of the people and start doing the business with a full governing body up here. If not, December 6th, we'll have someone fill the seat. Thank you.
You can fill a seat tonight, can't you?
You're right, we can,
Yeah.
with our nomination, with the county committee's blessing. It's a Republican seat, and that's what happens. The Republican Party, the Republican County Committee, they have the right to fill the seat, and they've done just that. But if you want to play politics and you want to play games, this is where we're at.
It's not my game, it's your appointment.
Correct, it is our appointment, but you're not taking our appointment.
I'm just suggesting one of the other three.
Okay.
I like I like to see some new blood up
Me
here.
too, John, we'll see
New
that in
blood.
November, won't we?
New blood.
Yeah. I have no further comments.
So you,
Yes, sir, we are.
Councilman Bonovich?
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell?
My vote is no. As requested by the process, I was given authorization to nominate one person, and we did that.
Councilwoman Richmond?
No.
And Mayor Berger?
I agree. I would love some new blood here so that we could have something that would truly be bipartisan. Because I've seen Mr. Leggio, I've seen things that he's done, and he has voted yes and he has voted no. He's voted on both sides of the aisle.
Excuse me.
I'm
Point of
sorry.
order, Mayor. We have the roll call. Conversation's over. He called for the roll call.
Correct.
Am I correct?
Correct.
Thank you. It's
Well,
called-
those are
it's
the
called
reasons why
Robert's
I
Rules of
believe in
Order.
Mr. Leggio.
Okay, Robert's Rules of Order, point of order.
I'm glad you read them.
Thank you. You should.
So what was the mayor's vote?
She voted.
I voted absolutely.
So that motion has also failed.
There's no discussion, there will be no discussion on this until the point at the 7 o'clock meeting?
No, you
That's
can
not
discuss
true.
now.
Right here.
Just don't go to...
I just
There's no
asked that
public comment.
question.
You can,
And
now
he
you can.
said there's a spot for it.
After
And it's
executive,
written.
after
After
executive.
Okay.
So unless there is another nomination on this one particular subject, there is now a motion to go into executive session.
May I make a motion to go into executive session, Mr. Harris?
When we come back, it's,
Don't speak.
There's a motion on the floor.
I'll second the motion.
Moved by Councilwoman Richmond, seconded by Councilwoman O'Donnell. Councilman Bonovich?
I would like to see the residents speak. No.
Councilwoman O'Donnell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
no.
Motion fails.
So the resolution to
Clark.
go into executive session has failed.
So we just sit here?
Right.
Okay, well,
Well, they can speak.
no,
Considering let
that's
them
not the
speak.
process, Councilman Bonovich. That's not the process. Stop trying to circumvent the system. That's not the process. Mr. Clark, excuse me, can you please step in as our parliamentarian and set the record straight? Thank you.
He's not the parliamentarian.
So we had a motion to go into executive session, which was really part of the point of this. We're not going to go into executive session. I'm not quite sure what we're going to do with the next 45 minutes because the motion's failed, and we have some important business that we were supposed to attend to, but I suppose
Can we go home and come back at 7 o'clock?
there you have it.
Okay. I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
We have a 6 o'clock session.
Oh, that's right, 6 o'clock, I'm sorry. I'll make a motion to adjourn till 6 o'clock.
Well, we do have to provide for the public's comment portion.
Excuse me,
Oh, my goodness.
adjourn till 6 o'clock.
I seconded the motion.
So
It failed.
The motion to adjourn the meeting till 6 o'clock?
It failed.
Did he take a roll call? I must have missed that one.
no, the motion was to go into
Yeah,
executive
that
session.
failed, and then I
That
made a motion
failed.
to adjourn till 6 o'clock.
I don't know that we've had a second,
Oh,
and as
yes.
Mr. Harris pointed out, I will point out too, under the Open Public Meetings Act, which just says, we do have to provide for a public comment period, so.
Doing that at 7 o'clock at our regular meeting?
Apparently not.
Your meeting is now.
Okay. Okay, so we're pushing everything up. I just want to be clear for the record. Excuse me?
Actually, I think we're following protocol according to Mr. Harris.
Okay, just want a clarification, Mayor, that's all.
I'll make a motion to open up to the public.
I'll second that. So are we not going into exec, so that's,
So I was just conferring with Mr. Clark, the attorney, is because this body has chosen historically to consider the executive session as its own separate meeting. It requires its own public comment session. And then we will adjourn this, and then we will convene again for the 6 o'clock meeting. And then, so that's the way it is. Not my doing. That's
I'm not
the way
sure.
it is.
Can you say that again, Mr. Harris? I wasn't sure I understood what you said.
So because of the way that you establish your meetings, you have your executive session meetings as one meeting, then you have your regular body, your regular council meetings as a separate meeting. You advertise them individually and separately. So because this is its own meeting, it will require its own public comment session. And then when you go into your regular meeting at 7 o'clock, you will have another public comment session there as well.
Thank you for the clarification. Do we have people signed up?
I do not.
No? Is there anyone that wants to come up to speak? If you do, please one at a time, and then you could sign the sheet. I'll take the sheet if you choose.
Tina Smilek, 33 Charles Street. My question is, there's 3 people up. Do they have to only vote for the one person that the committee told them to vote for, or can they vote for any 3?
The committee puts forward 3 names by statute. Those are the only 3 people that can be voted on.
Okay, but they can vote for any of them. They don't have to go with what the committee says.
They can do whatever they want.
Yes, they could do whatever they want. So they're
So if
choosing to
there's a
vote for one.
preferred candidate, then they can insist on that. So just because you might feel there's somebody that you'd rather, doesn't mean that they have to go along with that. Well, I assume that's the case.
You know what happens when you assume?
I do. You end up on Howell happenings.
Yes, exactly.
That was inappropriate.
Oh, my God.
Well,
Continue,
this whole
please.
meetings are inappropriate. I just wanted to know, when you have 3 people, you should be able to vote for any of the 3. That's my only point. That's what I wanted to ask.
So
and
is
I
there a
got my
motion
answer.
for Mr. Cardelicchio?
I think they should all be motioned for.
They can
it.
vote on all 3.
I agree. Why not vote on all 3? Everyone should have a chance to be voted on.
But that is not something that we determine. That's
what
an
they
action of
determine.
the governing body.
Exactly. But I would like to see everybody voted on. Why doesn't everybody get a chance? You know,
It depends on what the council wants to do.
and I'm okay with that. I just think,
Okay, well, they don't want to vote on the 3rd, so you're okay with that.
yeah, I just wanted to know if they were required to vote for one person, or if they could vote for anybody they wanted. What they do outside in their own committees is their own thing. What they do in here is separate.
So if the governing body doesn't agree on somebody, then it goes back to the county committee, which is what it looks like is going to happen here.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just asking a question.
Is there anyone else from the public?
Yeah. I saw him walking, I figured.
Good evening, everyone. Mark Parisi, Two Castle Court. I find this process a little fascinating, and so I geeked out and was reading some case law. I don't understand why we didn't have a public comment before council voted on this vacancy, because I read a case on Carley versus Borough of North Plainfield back in April of 2005, and it said clearly, it says, the rationale of the Open Public Meeting Act is relevant. An agenda item to fill a council vacancy is the kind of action for which public participation is desirable. So I don't know why we didn't allow
Yeah,
that.
I'm aware of the case, but you're probably not reading it right, I would bet. So, because I just read it yesterday, and it doesn't require public input on the selection, it just requires public comment during the meeting, which is what's happening now.
Okay, well, at the 7 o'clock meeting, you have public comment on the agenda items. You allow the public to comment prior to the agenda. This was the sole
The
agenda item
public
tonight.
comment portion of our meetings is on all items. It's not just on the consent agenda items. We don't break it down into two separate sections. We could have a separate time period for regular public comment, but instead we have one, and that covers both the consent agenda and anything else that the public wants to comment on.
I understand, and I don't want to get into a back and forth with you. I'll address my comments to the mayor. Originally, when this agenda was put forward, this resolution to appoint this vacancy was on the regular 7 o'clock consent agenda. Then the agenda was amended, and they moved that agenda item to its own separate meeting here at 5 o'clock. So, in my view, then there should have been an opportunity for the public to comment prior to council taking any action on this one particular agenda item. Your director of law may feel differently, that's fine. You guys already voted. I just feel as though the public probably should have been afforded the opportunity to speak prior to council voting on the three nominees.
So
That's my
I
opinion.
actually requested for it to happen at the actual meeting, not at 5 o'clock. There are a couple of reasons. There are people that have asked me, that wanted to be here, they couldn't be here because of the time frame. They could not get out of their job. As a matter of fact, I rushed here because it was so, I was in a project and I had to let it go. So I asked for that to be moved a little later, but the consensus, or whomever, decided that that wasn't going to happen and they were going to keep it at 5 o'clock. But because of the change that Mr. Harris just said, I understand what you're saying. I do. It doesn't seem like it's the same protocol.
Or at least process. You know what I mean? Like, one
So-
follows the other.
So can I clarify that a
Sure.
little bit, if you would like? First off, this particular resolution was never placed upon the 7 o'clock agenda, so I don't know where you got that information from. Because we had consultation, myself, the attorney, and the administrator, or the manager, I'm sorry, in consideration of some of the critical information that's being taken care of in the executive session, thought it was vital that the member be put in place and allow them to participate in that session so they could come out educated, take their seat, and vote accordingly. So that information where you got that it was on the 7 o'clock agenda and then moved, that's absolutely incorrect. These meetings, what happens in these meetings are established by ordinance. The council can determine where their public comment sessions are at any other time. And the agenda is not set arbitrarily. This is something that is outlined and followed meeting after meeting after meeting. So it is not arbitrary, it is not by capricious design, it's something that's established protocol that it is followed. Now, the body has the authority to change that anyway at any time to their liking, but that's the way it's laid out in the ordinances, and that's the way the meetings roll.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. I had prepared something to read prior to council's voting on the nominees. I'll read it anyhow. In light of Mr. Harris saying that now they have to come back on December 6th, or between now and December 6th, the committee will appoint whomever they choose?
After December 6th.
After December 6th?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So in light of that, just a little context. I read up on the law for filling municipal vacancies that has been amended over the years. In the past, when there was a vacancy by the minority party, the majority party would sometimes vote down the nominees in order to keep the seat vacant and weaken the minority representation. The legislature amended the law in 1990 to allow the municipal committee to appoint one of the nominees to prevent this from happening. The intent was to protect the minority party and their representation on a governing body. However, the vacant seat on this governing body is by the majority party, and there is a presumption the nominees put forward hold political principles compatible with the majority party. The plain language and spirit of the municipal vacancy law reads as an if-then scenario. If council fails to appoint one of the nominees tonight, then within the next 15 days, the municipal committee gets to appoint one of the nominees. It is my understanding only 3 Republicans submitted interest in filling the vacancy. Councilwoman Richmond said as much. Despite there being only 3 individuals for 3 spots, the party leadership created a subcommittee to interview these individuals and had their municipal committee meet and vote to rank them in order of preference. it appears the party leadership jumped ahead and pre-selected the nominee they intend to appoint before council even had the opportunity to vote on the nominees. So it begs the question, and this is where it kind of maybe gets somewhat irrelevant in light of what you've said. If the governing body fails to appoint one of the nominees tonight, is it legal to allow the party leadership to appoint their preferred nominee tonight? As we know, they are not going to. I don't know if it is, but I think that they should not be allowed. Although the municipal committee may have voted for their preferred nominee more than 2 weeks ago, how do we know the municipal committee members would select the same nominee if the vote were held tomorrow? We don't, and that's the problem. It's been more than 2 weeks since their meeting. The committee members may have discussed the nominees amongst themselves, or spoken to the nominees, or otherwise changed their minds. For these reasons, if the governing body fails to appoint tonight, there should be no appointment tonight, and this should go back to the municipal committee, as it is. I will close with this. Only you know how you will vote tonight, as you have already voted. This is an opportunity for you to seek compromise and appoint the nominee that will work with both parties to put the town first. The residents are tired of party politics and expect you will all vote in good faith, giving each nominee a fair chance at being appointed. The residents do not want to see any of you intentionally vote against a nominee simply to frustrate the process and allow the municipal committee to appoint their preferred nominee. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Are there any other comments?
Yeah. I kind of see them walking, so I know they're coming.
Kathy Novak, 16 Stratton Drive. I came tonight to see the process. I have not ever seen this before, and I am extremely upset that Councilwoman Richmond was directing the show and was going to shut the public down. That really bothers me. I've lived in this town for 37 years. And you guys were all going to go into executive session without hearing the public. And what about Mr. Clark? What did you have to say? Nothing.
We were going to have public comment after the executive session.
Well, most of the people will
It's
be...
on the agenda.
Well, that's really sad. That's shutting the public down, and you know it, and Councilwoman Richmond knows it, and O'Donnell know it. And it's very, very upsetting and disturbing. Me, as a resident for 37 years, that you conduct yourself in this manner, that you don't even, there's people that came out tonight at 5 o'clock.
So did I.
You know what? Why 5 o'clock? That's another big question. To shut the rest of the town down so they can't come, they're either eating or they're at work or they're on their way home. You know what? The Republican Party in this town has a really bad image right now.
Thank you.
Really,
Thank
really
you.
bad.
Thank you for your comments.
You're welcome, Councilwoman Richmond. I'm not done. I think I have 5 minutes.
Okay, how about it?
And Mayor, Deputy Mayor, not Mayor, Mayor Berger and Councilman Bonovich, I apologize for any outburst and any inappropriate behavior, but I was outraged when they were going to go into executive session without hearing the public. Good night.
Have a good night.
Good night. Is there anyone else that would like to come up and speak? Seeing no further comment, I believe that we can close this session and go into executive.
Well, the resolution to go into executive session failed.
Oh, okay.
So unless you're
So then
going to reconsider, the only option is to adjourn.
I'll reconsider that we go into executive now.
I'll make a motion to Mr. Councilman Bonovich. I'll make is that reconsider? Okay, a second. I just wanted to make sure. I'll second that reconsideration.
So Councilwoman Richmond has made a motion to reconsider the resolution to go into executive session.
Bonovich did it, and she second.
Oh, I thought she made the motion. I'm
I
sorry.
just made him, that's why I wasn't sure. I wanted to ask because it's a little confusing. I know that Councilman Bonovich made a reconsideration. I wasn't sure if that was a motion or not.
Made the motion to reconsider.
Okay. And I will second that reconsideration for the
Okay.
record.
Is there any discussion?
No, sir.
So this is the vote on the motion to reconsider.
Mr. Harris, if I may,
Yes.
Mayor.
Sure.
So obviously, it's 20 of 6. We have the special cannabis hearing at 6. How are we, so the public is well aware, how are we with the timing of executive and then?
But we better hit the gas and executive.
Okay, have at it. Roll call there, Mr. Harris, please.
Councilman Bonovich.
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond.
Yes.
Mayor Berger.
Yes.
So again, a motion to go into executive session. A motion to go into executive session.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is now closed to the public.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I'm sorry that we're a couple of minutes late, but we were running a couple of minutes late this evening with the meetings. So I would like to reconvene our meeting. And in doing so, though, Mr. Harris, do you still do the opening?
No,
And roll?
because we are not adjourning our
We're
prior
just
meeting. We're just
reopening.
reconvening. We'll take a roll call and we'll go right into the cannabis presentation.
Perfect.
Okay.
So at this time, if we can have a roll call, please.
Councilman Bonovich.
Present.
Councilwoman O'Donnell.
Here.
Councilwoman Richmond.
Present.
And Mayor Berger.
Present.
Okay, Mayor, in continuing with our cannabis hearings, for the purpose of guiding the governing body on making a decision for zoning, things like that. As you recall, we had one session quite a while ago now. We've had to back this up a bit just due to meeting schedules. However, tonight, first up, we have Krista Riddle from our Municipal Alliance. She has a presentation for the governing body and the public, and I believe she has a few other speakers as well. One other, okay.
So are we going with, there's two speakers and then the public?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did anybody sign up here to speak? Okay. So I guess, Krista, did you want to?
Mayor, may I just a reminder, and I'm not really being disrespectful, is there a time? Are we sticking to the hour? How-
So I would like, which is why I asked how many speakers there are, and I would appreciate if we could keep the comments to 5 minutes, so that if there are people in the audience that would like to speak, they could have that opportunity, so we close then at 7.
Or a little after, right? Because it's 10 minutes.
Well,
Yeah, ish, right? Yeah.
okay.
Excuse me, Chris, are you going to
Just a
use
quick-
the screen for yours?
Yes, I am, and
I-
mine
I'm
is
just
longer
gonna
than
scoot
5
up.
minutes,
No,
because I
not
was,
you.
okay,
Public comment, I
yeah,
think she meant.
okay.
I think
was
the
just
mayor meant
clarifying
public
that
Well,
before
but I
said-
don't want, if we could keep the comments, though,
yeah.
between the speakers to a reasonable, less than 10 to 10 minutes less, that would allow a couple of people to speak.
Mine's 20 minutes, because I was asked to come as a town professional. The chief was not limited in his time speaking, and I don't feel I should be either as a department head.
That was correct, Mayor. We allowed the chief to speak for about a half an hour on the
So I
topic.
would like you.
Well, then, I'm gonna say, then I don't know that the meeting will be ending at 7.
Okay,
Right.
that's fair. I
Any
just-
members of the public that wish to speak during the cannabis hearing, if you could please sign up so we can call you up at the appropriate time. Okay, go ahead, Chris.
Okay, well, since I'm advising council, I'm just going to have my back to the audience, so I apologize first off for that. And I hope everyone can see the PowerPoint. Tonight's presentation is Cannabis Licensing in Howell, Fact-Based Considerations for Responsible Recreational Cannabis Licensing Policy. Okay, so let's hope this works. Should be on.
Oh, you know what? Hold on a second
Oh.
first. Try now. See if that'll,
Oh, yeah.
there you go.
Okay. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Krista Riddle. I'm the Howe Alliance's coordinator. My contact information is up there, and it will also be at the end of the presentation, along with the resources that I have referenced tonight. This will also be posted on the Howe Alliance website for future viewing, should you be interested in the resources. And I have handed out a few papers that are out there if you're interested in taking them tonight. In case you are not familiar, the mission of the Howell Alliance is to collaborate with community stakeholders to prevent substance abuse and other at-risk behaviors through awareness, education, and programs. The Alliance also promotes mental well-being and the reduction of substance use and mental health disorder stigmas. This presentation is an overview of what we need to consider to make informed decisions in the best interest of our entire community, not a few select populations. It is meant as a lead into respectful and constructive dialogue. This decision is of serious importance with lasting impact. It should not be rushed or partisan and will take due diligence, time, conversation, and expert advisement. We as a community need to examine the data and research from states that have already legalized so we don't make the same mistakes they did, many of which cannot be undone. We need to be proactive, not reactive. Under the New Jersey cannabis law, cannabis has been established to reference legal recreational use products for adults 21 and over. Marijuana now refers to the illegal market, including black market products and sales, as well as underage possession and use. At this point, since there is no legal recreational cannabis for sale, all recreational use is still illegal. And here is the cannabis legalization question on the voters' ballot from the November 3rd, 2020 election. As you can see, there is no mention of restricting law enforcement's early intervention role with youth marijuana use and also underage drinking. There is no mention of criminal charge repercussions for law enforcement along this slippery slope. And there is no mention of high-potency recreational sales in the proposed amendment. Did people have accurate facts to consider when casting their vote on question number 1 for legalization? Some, like concerned parents, say no. And I'm not going to get into reading the numbers up there because they will be posted for everyone to read at their leisure. But in reference to the November 3rd, 2020 ballot to legalize cannabis, this summary of data shows that not all of Howell wants marijuana licensing in Howell. Actually, about half of Howell's decision makers ages 18 and up said yes to marijuana legalization. It is not a sweeping majority or even a majority, especially when you consider only 37% of the total Howell population across all ages voted yes. Our elected decision makers and hired professionals have a duty to serve and make responsible policy for all community members, not just 50%, regardless of age or voting. They must act in the best interest of all of the public's benefit, including health, safety, and well-being. Okay, and here I am actually referencing an interview of Chief Kudrick last November. So it was from November 20th of 2020. So I would like to thank Howell's Chief Kudrick for his candor after last November's legalization vote. His forward-thinking and frankness on the topic early on expressed serious concerns for our community with New Jersey's legalization of marijuana. It's going to become a problem for us and a problem within our community. I don't believe the community understands the consequences that are going to come with that. And these are direct quotes. The link is up there. If you click on the PowerPoint that will be posted on my website, you can click on the image and it will bring you to the video. Further quotes. Howe was in the top 15 in the state's opioid-affected municipalities. We got hit hard here. We were adversely affected, but we overcame that through education, enforcement, our recovery efforts, and engaging our community resources. We know that everyone who has an opioid problem first started with marijuana. When you look at the hard data from Colorado's Department of Transportation, the number of traffic fatalities as a result of marijuana impairment has increased. They are passing this at the worst possible time. They are trying to expedite it. They are shoving it down the voters' throats. Now is not the time. You're in the middle of a pandemic. You're just getting over a major opioid epidemic in this state, and now they're presenting to the community to legalize marijuana. I am asking for a responsible, well-planned, and well-informed cannabis licensing policy in Howell that, as the chief said, does not shove it down the throats of our community members. Wait, I forgot to advance it, so give me a second. Okay, so there's 6 classes of cannabis licenses that we can consider in Howell. cultivator, manufacturer, wholesaler, distributor, retailer, and delivery service. So we can choose none, one, or all. Delivery service coming into town cannot be banned, but a town can choose not to have delivery services established as a business in their town. Howell is not an impact zone, so we will not be prioritized to get any licenses from the New Jersey Cannabis Regulatory Commission. Just because a town wants to accept certain types of cannabis businesses doesn't mean they will actually get them, as the state's commission solely decides which applicants will be issued licenses. I've identified 4 crucial considerations for responsible cannabis licensing that we should consider in Howell and have dialogue about before we decide what we're going to do here. Youth, community health and well-being, law enforcement, and community impact and cost benefit. Number 1 is youth. Today's lowered risk perception and easier access have led to an increase in youth use of marijuana. High-potency concentrates can contain up to 99% THC, which is the psychoactive compound in marijuana or cannabis that produces the high. Marijuana impacts the developing brain, which develops until age 26. Marijuana can be a gateway to harder drugs, as Chief Kudrick just indicated. Most heroin and cocaine users start with marijuana. Early intervention is key to preventing substance abuse, and the law imposes police restrictions that deter this early intervention. Sorry for this, there's a delay sometimes with the clicker. Number 2, community health and well-being. Marijuana can be addictive. Cannabis use disorder and marijuana addictive disorder will be discussed later. Marijuana can impact mental health during the pandemic's already increased numbers for mental health disorders and suicidalities. The opioid epidemic is rising again for the first time in years. You can see in 2018, Howell had 65 overdoses, fatal and non-fatal. 2019, we dropped it to 50. In 2020, despite the pandemic, it was 45, and through the third quarter of 2021, we're already at 50. So we're probably going to be equal to or exceeding 2018.
So are those deaths are from opioids?
From opioids, fatal and non?
I'm just wondering.
Yes, so the opioid epidemic, so Howell's overdoses, fatal and non. Child poisonings due to edibles and liquids increased with legalization, and the American Heart Association's recent data shows an increase in heart attacks since marijuana legalization in people under 50 who have cannabis use disorder. That just came out. So our third area of concern is law enforcement. Law enforcement faces possible criminal implications when confronting underage marijuana use and drinking. Allowing licenses indicates Howell's approval of the New Jersey cannabis laws, removing our police as a youth early intervention resource, and supports putting our officers in compromising positions. The black market thrives in legalized areas, according to DEA data. DUIs increase in states with legalization, and drug recognition experts are in need already with limited training opportunities for each municipality. New canine dogs will also be required. And number 4, community impact and cost benefit. Which of the 6 licenses do we allow? Remember, Howell is not an impact zone. Our business is grandfathered once they're here, which means they're here to stay if we later decide that we don't want them. What is the actual profit from tax revenue once expenses are outlaid? And this is critical. When is a cost-benefit analysis being done to answer this for Howell so we can project our expenses and revenue? What about environmental impacts such as water, sewer, air, electricity, and waste? Marijuana plants each demand 8 gallons of water per day, more than any other crop, and this has impacted California's water shortage, so it's something to be considered. What about training and extra staff and professional consultation for zoning and planning, tax assessments and collection, and code enforcement? Who enforces the Smoke-Free Air Act in Howell parks, public places, and private business properties? It is not law enforcement as of now. I have just briefly highlighted critical areas that we need to research and address before we make cannabis licensing decisions for our community. I could be up here for days, and much more needs to be discussed and presented for full understanding and dialogue about what it means for our community to provide licensing. And I just have a few more points for consideration to look a bit closer. Recent increases in access to marijuana and in its potency, along with misperceptions of safety of marijuana, endanger our most precious resource, our nation's youth. That is from the former U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Jerome Adams. 35% of 12th graders used marijuana during the past year, with 7% reporting daily use. Among college students, 44% reported using marijuana in the past year. Youth tend to use the high-potency marijuana products. Marijuana can cause permanent physical, emotional, behavioral, and mental impacts on the developing brain, as indicated by causal data. High-potency concentrates are a major concern. Marijuana concentrates can contain up to 99% THC levels, whether in the black market or recreationally sold through legal means. Examples would be hash oil, dabs, butter, shatter, and wax. Products with 97% and higher THC make up 15% of recreation marijuana sales, legal sales. Marijuana 2 decades ago had 3% THC on average. We could compare, making a caffeine comparison that most people would understand. You can compare that 3% THC to having 1 20-ounce Coke in a day, a bottle of soda. Today, marijuana is 55% THC on average. That is the same amount of drinking 33 16-ounce cappuccinos in a day, the same amount of caffeine. So that's how much.
I think that argument can be brought forward with alcohol as well. There are different levels of alcohol with different, I'm just making a comparison. So they do have, there is a huge.
That doesn't work well for our society either. So I'm going to bring that up after I bring up the marijuana, the concern about alcohol and smoking, tobacco. Okay.
But those higher potency alcohols are legal.
Right, but is that working out for people with all the deaths related to alcoholism and the cost on our society?
I respect. I'm not arguing the point. I'm just making a comparison. That's all I'm doing.
Yes. No, I'm just saying the data that I'm presenting is that alcoholism has cost many, many lives, which I'll get to the
Many more than
statistics.
marijuana.
At this point, but marijuana is a baby legally considered to alcohol. I'm not up here for debate. I don't want to take my time because we're on a tight time schedule.
No, I know. I'm giving you your time.
So I just want to present the facts, and we can have dialogue again and digest it. There is no potency cap in New Jersey or other legalized states, except Vermont. Vermont is a homegrown-only state. They're the only one with a potency cap. In Colorado, parents are now fighting for a 15% potency cap because of seeing the impact on youth with mental health disorders and suicidality coming from the high-potency products. They are not having much luck because of the industry pushing back the retailers. It would cut into sales. There is a causal link between high-potency products and psychosis, even after one use if you're predisposed genetically. The New Jersey Cannabis Regulatory Commission agrees about the dangers of high-potency products because they require a label on all cannabis products with 40% or higher THC levels to read, "This is a high-potency product and may increase your risk for psychosis." High potency and high frequency of marijuana use are associated with the most severe impacts on mental health. A 2019 study found the risk of psychosis triples when using products with 15% or higher THC potency, with daily users 5 times more likely to develop a severe mental illness such as psychosis or schizophrenia. Higher potency products are associated with increased daily and almost daily use and addiction. And Americans ages 12 and older who reported using marijuana daily and almost daily in the past 30 days increased from 6.2 million in 2009 to 13.8 million in 2019. As far as marijuana and mental health, marijuana is addicting, with 1 in 10 users becoming addicted. 1 in 6 marijuana users under the age of 18 becomes addicted. People ages 18 to 25 have the highest rate of marijuana use. Marijuana-related impacts on mental health include THC addiction, psychosis, depression, anxiety, suicide, reshaping of brain matter, overdoses, and marijuana-related hospitalizations and ER visits. It can also cause accidental child ingestion and rise in poison control calls. If marijuana is not locked up and your child goes to someone's house for a play date and there's marijuana edibles or something there that they consume, that's a risk you're going to face. And then also cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, which is severe uncontrollable vomiting. People say it is just weed, or it's just a plant, or it's natural, but this is untrue with the higher potency cannabis and marijuana cultivated and manufactured today. It is genetically modified and processed to have higher THC levels and also contains contaminants such as mold, pesticides, and carcinogens, whether sold legally or illegally. Cannabis use and marijuana use disorder. Cannabis use disorder is in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition, which is used by mental and behavioral health professionals for mental disorder diagnoses. The DSM-5 notes that most users begin in early adolescence or as young adults. Marijuana use can lead to the development of a problem use known as marijuana use disorder, which takes the form of addiction in severe cases. Recent data suggests that 30% of those who use marijuana may have some degree of marijuana use disorder, with 25% increase in marijuana use disorder in children 12 to 17 after recreational legalization.
I have one question, if I may. I know percentages are representative of percentages, right? So if 25% could be 1 in 4. So do you have a number that
Well,
we could use, like almost, I was just going to talk to you in Spanish, almost as like a denominator number? Do you know what I mean?
Yes, that would be in the resources that I have up
Okay.
there. I don't have it in front of me, but for my,
Just to correlate
science-based
the percent
resources.
versus the number.
Absolutely, absolutely. But it's 30% of those who used marijuana, so whatever that poll would be.
Whatever that denominator
Exactly,
was.
exactly. People who begin using marijuana before the age of 18 are 4 to 7 times more likely to develop a marijuana use disorder than adults. And then on to the law enforcement. Many parents and other voters have expressed concern about law enforcement's limitations with underage marijuana use and underage drinking that were not mentioned on the ballot last November. Police and school resource officers who have built rapport with students over time were a critical source of early intervention for youth. There is not a database that will track law enforcement's underage marijuana and underage drinking warnings issued. It will not track it across towns, across counties, and statewide. Parent guardian warnings from law enforcement will be paper copies kept only at each police department of issuance, to be destroyed 2 years after issuance or upon the underage user turning 21. That means there's no record of how many warnings one minor gets from municipality to municipality. Okay. And here is actually, it'll be on the PowerPoint that I post. I'm not going to stand here and read this, but this slide shows how law enforcement is restricted in handling underage drinking and marijuana use, even with minors using these substances in plain sight or with the odor of marijuana or alcohol present. 6 ounces of marijuana is equal to six sandwich bags filled, or comparable to the size of a basketball, which is a huge amount of marijuana for youth or anyone to possess. Up to 6 ounces of possession is legal for adults. If someone under 21 possesses up to 6 ounces, it results in a written warning to a parent or a guardian, no matter how many times that youth is found with marijuana. The youth may not be detained or taken into custody unless another violation of the law is being committed. Law enforcement officers may be charged with the crime of deprivation of civil rights, which is circled in red, for knowingly violating underage use rules, with knowingly leaving a very gray area for police officers. Law enforcement will have to further clarify this area of concern, but if we allow licensing in Howe, we are supporting the state law's restriction and slippery slope they have imposed on officers to navigate. As far as revenue, municipalities can charge 2% tax on top of the state's sales tax of 6.625%. For revenue on receipts, except wholesale is a 1% tax rate. Colorado taxes recreational marijuana at 15% sales tax rate on retail sales, plus a 15% excise tax on the first transfer. What about businesses doing cash sales that are not reported and not taxed? We won't see any benefit of that. And then other considerations, there's double the risk of opioid use on days marijuana is used. A substitution of or decline in opioids with marijuana use is unlikely. Child poisonings increase with legalization. Massachusetts had a 140% increase in calls to poison control. And in 2019, Colorado's Health Department reported a 400% increase in marijuana poisonings of children 0 to 9 since legalization. Only 18 to 30% of Oregon's marijuana is sold legally because black market sales follow legalization. Marijuana-impaired driving fatalities increased alarmingly after legalization. In Washington and Colorado, the numbers doubled, and in Oregon, 50% of all drivers assessed tested positive for marijuana impairment after legalization there. And here's to speak to the alcohol. But alcohol and cigarettes are legal. Excessive alcohol use causes 95,000 deaths in the U.S. a year and $249 billion in costs. Cigarette smoking causes 480,000 deaths in the U.S. a year and $300 billion in costs. Tobacco companies are heavily invested in the marijuana industry. For example, Altria, who owns Philip Morris, who makes Marlboro cigarettes, invested $1.8 billion in the marijuana industry. Tobacco's down, they have to make their money someplace, so they're investing in vaping companies and marijuana. In the 1930s and 1940s, prior to linking cigarette smoking to lung disease, which is where we are with the infancy of legalization of marijuana, cigarette ads featured and quoted doctors. They even prescribed it for asthma. So marijuana and vaping are too new for data. We are the guinea pigs. The lungs aren't designed to safely inhale toxins of any kind, including tobacco, nicotine, marijuana, in smoke or vapor form. And here are the resources that you asked for. They're there if anybody wants to reference where everything's been pulled from. And again, this will be posted. I thank everybody for their time tonight. And I'm here for further dialogue, or if we want to do a round table.
I just have a couple of questions, and I don't know if you have the answer, or maybe the chief has the answer. I'm not sure. So I didn't know, has there been a review of the number of accidents due to alcohol versus due to marijuana? Do you know if there has been a study do you know, Brian, if there's been a study about that in our town?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Yeah, because we're relying on the drug recognition experts at this point for, there's like no breathalyzer.
We could go retro to just kind of look backwards to see
Even retro, we only had drug recognition experts. We had 4, now
Right.
we have 2. So they're not always, on every call. And if somebody blows for alcohol above the legal limit, then they're not going to call in a drug recognition expert for marijuana.
They're already there for one reason.
Yeah, so it's like it's not
Right.
accurate data really, too, because of the crossover.
So the other question I have is, if we decide to move forward and open a facility in Howell or any one of the types, right? So, we heard Andy. I would like, and I know I believe there's somebody in the audience, but I don't know if he's here, he was here the last time, to show the processes that are put in place for the adult to go into those facilities, right? Now, I know, you could say, well, the adult went into the liquor store and bought a bottle for the kid. I get it. I can't solve it. We can't solve the deviance of it. We could try and set a good process and protocol, right? But if there's a deviant out there, it's just gonna happen, unfortunately. So I was just wondering your views on, there are adults in the audience who have voted for it. There are adults in every one of these rooms nowadays, right, who voted for it.
We don't only represent those who vote, we represent all of the Howell population.
That wasn't my,
Right.
that wasn't my-
So go ahead. I thought we were having dialogue because you were
I
talking to me
wasn't
before.
finished.
I know, but you were talking when I was, so I figured I
Oh.
could ask a question too.
Sure. So I'm talking about the adults that have voted for it and feel that if the majority of the state has voted for it, why would I'm just asking the question, why would I not be able to purchase in my own town? And why would I be able to call, and I'm making it up, Town A that's on either side of any of our borders and have it delivered to me and I get it anyway? I'm just wondering your thought process on
I'm
that.
not speaking personally tonight. I'm just speaking from a professional perspective.
Okay.
So I presented the data. It is not a
I know the
majority, it's
data.
also not a majority of the community that did vote for cannabis legalization. And with, as far as that goes, we have a lot of restaurants that aren't in town, and people are ordering Uber Eats to get that food. So that's not a deterrent, right?
No,
So I'm sure with
not at all.
marijuana, it won't be either.
Absolutely won't. I'm sure it won't.
We don't have those restaurants here, so why have, the retailers here? It's the same kind of correlation. People will just have it delivered if they want it.
I don't know that I agree with that, but that's your opinion.
No, it's not my opinion.
Oh, that's your view.
Yeah.
Is there any questions?
Yes, I have a comment. You had made reference to Chief Kudrick, who had done a video last November, I believe. So that's not the same information that he shared with us a few meetings ago.
No, I don't believe so. That was September 28th. This was last year, so yeah, it's a different,
Because the information that I think I'm seeing on the video was, he was talking gateway, problematic for our town. And then when he was here, I felt that I was hearing that he doesn't find this as much of a problem as he did prior.
Well,
Don't know why.
I think that he had gone
Well-
to a facility to look at one,
Well,
and I think that that's what I'm just saying to you. I
Councilman
think
O-
that that's what,
Councilman O'Donnell, that's because, I guess, as time goes on, I mean, it's legalized how long in New Jersey? And a lot of these studies go back from 2016, 17, 18. Now, new studies come out, current, and maybe people are seeing a different thing. Maybe there's not as many criminal,
well, there won't be as many criminal charges
Yeah.
because of police
Yeah.
officers' hands being
So,
tied
point
right
being,
now, so.
there's always a new study, and we're starting to see a lot of them now.
I
Like
guess
what, I'm
the
wondering.
gist of my commentary was, between the two times that I felt that I heard the chief speak in his capacity as chief of the town, I felt it was a different thought. He had a different perception.
Maybe he can come back to address that. I mean, I
And
don't want to
think-
say there.
And I thought he was going to come back and do this again, because it's definitely a different perception. I mean, I played the video for several people, so.
Oh,
there's yeah.
that same video?
Yeah, so there's definitely a different perception, but my question to you is that, have you been able to sit down with law enforcement in your capacity with the Municipal Alliance, and to try to get a feel on how you can weigh that information today based on whatever it is that the chief is talking about now?
No, I do partner with the SROs, the school resource officers, frequently, and I know that there's been a huge change in the dynamic of police officers interacting with youth when marijuana is involved, which is a huge concern, and that is piggybacked into this same law of recreational legalization, is that same piece that I showed you, with the warnings for police officers, and then the criminal charges that they may face, if they violate that, so.
that's why I was kind of interested in that number, in like how many, prior to this law coming into effect, I was just interested in the number of young people who have been detained.
Well, yeah, juvenile arrests have gone completely down because of it.
I mean, prior to this, I'm looking at, I want to look at it in the back end, not right now.
So where are
Like,
we
let's say-
examining with that?
Let's say 20, 19, 18, 19, 20. I would just like to, just to know what those numbers
Are you talking
represent in our
about,
town.
are you talking about 2018, 2019?
Yes,
Oh, not the
yes.
age, 18, 19, and 20 years old?
Yes,
Okay.
2018, 2019, 2020, just to have a curve to see where the numbers are, to see really what is happening
Well,
in
so
our town.
What numbers would that be then, that you're looking
So
at?
I would say the youths that have gotten, whether they were detained or arrested or whatever, level it was, that have happened prior to this new law coming to place. Do you know what it? do you
Yeah.
know? So I would just like to know what those numbers are.
Absolutely.
I think that's an
But
important,
it will show a decline. Because they can't.
Going forward.
Yeah, they
I
can't.
know that.
Right, but up until then,
but at
there are
least it
also
gives you
like.
an idea of what's been happening.
Absolutely,
It gives you
absolutely.
a view back.
I
is
don't
what
know if the police department tracks that. I started
Yeah.
tracking juvenile arrests last year. In addition to
Okay.
the overdoses, I also track mental health crises,
Mm-hmm.
suicides in Howell for that year-over-year data, but I just started that last year. I was hired in 18, and I started that in 2019.
I'll ask, I'll see if maybe they could find that. I think it would be it just would be an interesting information to understand.
And I think
Even if we could break that also to a little bit further down by age.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And so I would love to have a roundtable with that, so we can all share the information, and, digest it together. So, okay.
Thank you, that was very informative, I appreciate
Thank you,
that.
Krista. That was great, thank you.
Krista, did you have somebody else to speak as well?
Please.
Thanks for having me. I'll keep it brief. It's very weird for me to have my back to the audience. It freaks me out.
Okay.
I'm Ken Pecoraro. Again, I'll keep it brief because I know you guys are probably already over time pretty much. But my name's Ken Pecoraro. I work with CPC Behavioral Healthcare. I've been the director of addiction services there for 20 years. I've been in the addiction field for close to 30. It's pretty much all I've ever done, gone right from high school to college, right into the field in the early 90s. So I'm not here to make any kind of political statement or legal statement. I understand I'm a treatment person, and it's funny, I ran the adolescent group at CPC for many years, and kids used to say to me, what are you going to do when marijuana's legal? Or, you're going to close down. And I'd say, nah, not really. Alcohol's legal, and we have plenty of people here for alcohol. So the legality and the treatment, they're closely related, but people are going to have problems no matter what you do. So the one thing that Krista did ask me to speak about, which I do want to take a stand on, is early intervention. And if we're talking about kids, and when I use the word kids, people think of 18 and younger. Now, if you really think about it, a kid it depends, it's very relative. I have a 22-year-old at home, he's definitely a kid. You know what I mean? The life that we lead now, a 25-year-old leads now is, they say 25 is the new 18. It's not like you're married and having a house at 21. So kids, young people, whatever you want to say, when it comes to treatment, being a treatment person for close to 30 years, when you go to college to learn how to be a counselor, you go there and you want to do something good for the world, and you think that you're going to get people who are going to say, please help me, I have a drug problem. And you go to a treatment center and you work there and you find out that rarely happens. It does happen, but with young people, it's the younger you go, the more and more infrequent that is. So when it comes to early intervention, whether we legalize things or they're illegal or whatever, there should be some kind of mechanism to, I don't know what the right word is, get people to go to treatment, to recommend early intervention and treatment, especially young people. Because fortunately, if you do look at, Krista had a lot of statistics here, but if you look at the overarching things of alcohol and marijuana, most people who drink responsibly. Thank God for that, right? Most people who use marijuana, same thing. But the ones who don't do a lot of damage. You know what I mean? And not necessarily marijuana alone, but the thing is, you're getting into the group of marijuana that gets dependent, moves on to other substances. We have 100,000 dead people now from the opioid crisis, which is the number one by far. Opioids rule, it's wreaking havoc on the world right now. But we want to prevent people from that happening. So whatever this group decides to do, just to be mindful of, to have some kind of mechanism to tell young people, look, you were using marijuana or you were using alcohol, but you were using it unsafely, you were using it at school where you shouldn't be, wherever it is, that's something that should get looked into. Because if you don't nudge or recommend or whatever, I don't want to use the wrong word, people towards going toward treatment, they don't go. You know what I mean? Like I said, I've never had a 16-year-old call CPC and say, please help me, I smoke too much weed. It's never been, not in 20 years I've been there, it doesn't happen. But a kid who had maybe what they call, they used to, I don't know, they sell station house adjustment, or a concerned police officer who says, look, we caught you smoking in the park, maybe you want to go get help and go. And it does, when you go to a place like CPC or any other place that does early intervention, we do treatment and early intervention. It's not like what you think on TV where you're getting shamed or you're this bad person because you use drugs. It's getting people to think about the choices they make for the future. And that's what's important, because again, most people are going to grow out of it, fortunately, just by time alone. I'm sure there's people in this room right now that smoked weed and they're fine now. There's lots of them. They're out there. But the ones that don't, it's a very, very rough course. And so when we do see somebody who's using in a unsafe or problematic manner, you don't want to ignore it either. So just because something's legal doesn't mean it's harmless. So again.
I think we all agree with you on
Okay,
that.
right. So that's all. I'm an advocate of if some kind of way, to say, hey, look, this isn't safe. You're making some bad decisions. A kid who gets drunk and goes to the prom or smokes weed and is cutting school now. Hey, let's look at this. Maybe this is problematic for you, and get them to talk to a professional to look at that. So that's what I came here to talk about. I also came to support Krista I work with a lot of municipalities, and I know whether you agree or disagree with Krista, she cares about people and about drugs and about kids, and there's no doubt I get to see that in comparison with a lot of other towns. And so I came here to support her as well for that. So Howell's been, we just moved into Howell, and we have right next door. We have a CPC now, and Howell's been great very welcoming to us, and a lot due to Krista kind of introducing me to people and things like that. So that's all. I just came here to talk about that, to keep that as something to consider. To not just say, let's look the other way and hope it all goes away by itself. Kids who are having troubles, let's get them the help they need early. Go ahead. You had a
So
question?
I absolutely, I hear you and I agree with you 1,000,000%. I mean, whoever doesn't have children here, I'm sure they have niece and nephew and feel the same. I do not believe that anybody on here, whether we vote for it or not, has any intent for it to affect the children, right? There are illegal drugs out there, it's illegal alcohol out there. I'm saying we're trying to make something that's already legal, accessible to the people who can get it. For example, even if it's needed for anxiety or PTSD or any of the other diagnoses that are pain. I just don't know, and I heard you, Krista, when you said it's the entire community, and I agree with you, it is the entire community. But if we only focus on not doing something, you're not focusing on the entire community, right? You're not. You're focusing on one portion. And I agree with you. There's more than just talking about not having marijuana in the town. I'm not sure that is the actual problem. I think the problem is the kids today, they need more help in the schools. I think that there needs to be more identification of these children who seem depressed. And those are the kids who are going towards these medications or trying to, I hate to say, self-medicate to not be depressed. So I totally understand the entire clinical piece of it and the psychological piece of it. My only questions are if this is something that is legal and it is something that is monitorable, monitorable, is that monitoring, you can monitor it. Monitorable is not a word, but that's what I mean. And, I would say, and I don't know if you've been to any of these stores, right, that you could buy marijuana from. Have you ever gone to
I
one?
haven't, no. Personally, no.
No. I would truly think that everybody here, and you as well, Krista?
Well, I didn't say it was against it. I said I'm on responsible policy. I think I'm
I-
being painted in a light that's...
No, I'm actually not.
I didn't say you. I said I think I'm being. I didn't...
No, I don't think so. I think the gentleman just said that you're doing a great job, and we agreed.
I'm not concerned with that. I'm just saying, as far as I spoke tonight for responsible policy. So, me going personally to the store has nothing to do with personal...
I just wanted it for edification process, that's it. Just an edification.
And those other things are PTSD, et cetera, medical conditions. That's not recreational, that's medical.
I understand, very much so, I understand that. I was just naming a few. Thank you. So, thank
Okay.
you very
Well,
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian Marlowe?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ryan Marlowe, 163 Adelphia Road.
Hi.
It's been 4 months since I've stood in front of you. I don't know if you recall me from last time.
Yes, I do.
I remember yourself, ma'am, you spoke of how your mother had used medical marijuana while she was battling cancer. So we all know that there's plenty of benefits to the use of marijuana. While, you know, she's done a phenomenal job pointing out all the negatives, I didn't hear one positive about the use of marijuana. So 20 minutes, I would love to create a presentation that would take 20, 25 minutes of time to tell you about the positives of marijuana and what it can do for people. But, you know, I don't think I have to do that. I think you all know what the benefits are. You know, we have talked about in the past how towns have made revenue off of marijuana sales. Up to the highest amount I saw was in the township of Belmara in southern New Jersey. They made $160,000 a year is what their cap is that they get out of one dispensary. $160,000. What can $160,000 do for this town? Pay for 2, maybe 3 of our police officers, maybe, you know, some of the specials and stuff, some of the other stuff. You know, no telling. But either way, the revenue can be put to use, and I'm sure Howe could definitely use it. You know, there's plenty of locations that this town has vacant buildings that these places can go into that I think that we should definitely look at if we can come to an agreement that we are going to allow it in the town. And, you know, it's just, I'm tired of hearing the discussions about if we need to allow it, if. It's not a matter of if. While she did present data that showed the voters, there was one discrepancy I found in that data. She said 50% of Howell Township voters voted for it. That is inaccurate. According to the Monmouth County Voters Organization and what I saw off their website and from the data, it was 58%. That's 8%. National, I saw it as 50% as what you had, but it was 58%.
But that's not okay.
I'm sorry, I'm not here to have a debate with you, ma'am.
Go ahead, I don't want to take your time.
Absolutely. So either way, you know, I think we need to move forward with this and start looking at the options that we have available to us while we do have the options.
So I'm just going to Krista's point, there are different licenses.
Absolutely, yes, ma'am.
And so even if we want to open 50 stores, there are not 50 licenses that would come to the town.
No.
So, you know, I think that's another process as well. But I would agree that I would like to move forward to see if we can obtain a license.
Absolutely. Thank you, counsel.
Before you leave, may I?
Yes, ma'am.
You had said that, you know, you two could make a presentation, so I would encourage you to do that.
Absolutely.
I think it's important to see what you offer, you know, in a PowerPoint or, you know, whatever,
More than happy.
handouts.
As someone that was on the prior side of federal enforcement of the law, you know, I'm very familiar with it. And so I have no problem, and I'm currently a doctoral student, so I have plenty of research that can back my data.
I mean, yeah, I think that when we see something, you know, presented, it, you know, it has a different kind of weight as opposed to someone just saying, I could offer something different.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
The other thing is, you did mention, was it Almara, 160,000 a
Belmara,
year?
160,000.
Palmyra?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
so, and if you included that kind of information, I would also urge you to include what it costs the town to do that, you know, and perhaps extra
Sure.
police officers or security, whatever the case may be.
Absolutely.
So I think that we have a well-rounded idea of what we're really looking at.
Absolutely. I'll be
That
more
would
than
be
happy to put
excellent.
together
Thank
some
you.
more
Good.
qualitative data for you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
right.
Thank you.
Is that medical? Because recreational is not legal yet, so it must be
Oh, I
medical.
thought she was talking to me.
Right, medical. Yeah, no, we are, we're discussing recreational tonight.
Ed McMahon, McName?
McMahon. John Wilson.
It was.
Hey, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening. By the way, I'd like to work with that gentleman. I have all this information for him
think so.
that he
I
could
think he advanced.
use in this PowerPoint presentation, which I'm going to go through. As you well know, I have sent out this information I'm going to discuss to 4 of the board members
I got
prior to it.
Brian?
Before, is that okay?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was just, Mrs. Dixell wanted her name on the list.
You were out of town all day, you just got back, sorry.
Okay.
You're there.
First of all, I want to start about the proclamation you put out there. The latest updated information from the National Institute of Drug, NIDA, which is quoted right here. This is a source coming from the Medical Marijuana Research Center. The title of the article is Cannabis Legislation Not Linked to an Increase in Cannabis Among High School Students, dated September of 21. So that's a late one. And it is quoting the National Institute of Drug Abuse, NIDA, who you're referring to on this, their director, Nora Volkov, Volkow, acknowledged in a recent interview with Drug Policy Alliance founder Eaton Nanoho that she expected the use of cannabis to increase among adolescents given recent legislation efforts, but it has not happened. This is a 21 information. I searched looking for that, and I found that information in 2016 information. So a lot of the information can be used, but you got to put the dates on them when they're published there. I have articles, all right, which are here, everything for the records. I have 10 articles because it was discussed for the last time. Let's get some studies, let's get some articles that are out there. So I went out there and did it. I'm going to highlight a few. I've given the information. CDC, we talk about the CDC. This is a paper done in November 2020 that found fewer teens going to hospitals as as adults, as the adult laws took effect. All right, the CDC data comports with the study published in the Journal of American Association of Physicians, JAMA, in the 2019, not 2016, 2019, that surveyed 1.4 million kids. That's a pretty big study. Concluded consistent calls with results of previous researches. There's no evidence that the legislations of medical marijuana encourage marijuana use among youth. All right? And then I'm just highlighting because I only have 5 minutes. I don't have 20 minutes. All right? The next is an article on the data on legal weed dated March 16, 2021. And it says the newsletter discusses legalization didn't seem to substantially affect crimes. Legalization didn't seem to have little or no effect on traffic accidents and fatality. Legalization had barely affected the price of marijuana. Legalization created jobs, lots of jobs. Legalization is good for the state budget. Legalization may be good for the state workers' compensation program. And then the Columbia study says, however, more important, as of 2017, legislation did not lead to more frequent use of cannabis use disorder among those groups. There's no charge and use were observed among the non-Hispanic, Black, or other individuals aged 12 to 20, and all racial ethnic groups for all whom cannabis remained legal. I'm going quickly, trying to get my pieces out here.
1 minute
I gotta
left.
rush. Am I finished?
1 minute left.
1 minute left, wonderful. Not 20 minutes. Tough for the people trying to get various studies. I have 6 various studies here. One is from state of Illinois, state of California, and I can quote them. They're all positive. They're all saying there has been no increase in adolescent use because of when it became recreational marijuana. Was there? No. In fact, some of them said it was 6-8% decrease. I have the studies, they're all here, and I also have the information that I sent maybe 4 months ago from the New York State requirement for practitioners to prescribe, showing you that marijuana is less addictive than cigarettes. Cigarettes are less addictive than alcohol. Alcohol obviously is less addictive than heroin, etc. And if you really study the history of marijuana, you will see that it is mislabeled. It should not be a Schedule I drug. I have the history, I have it here, I've given the information there, and I don't have any time, but I'm glad to do it. But if I have 20 minutes with this other fella, I think we can make our case. Thank you.
Why don't you
Leave all
leave
the
your
stuff there.
information with our clerk and let him,
Oh, it's right here. It's all here. Where do I get it?
Didn't you email that to us?
Yes, I did, but I...
oh, that's the
Did you
same
want it for the
packet?
record?
Oh, okay, yes,
Yeah.
all right.
Do you want it for the record?
Leave it right there on that table. Thank you.
Information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure how to say this last name because the letters are kind of really small. Ken, P-E-C-N-A-R?
He spoke, that was Ken,
Okay. Lawrence Luttrell.
Madam Mayor, council members. My name is Lawrence Luttrell. I'm an attorney. I represent Merrick Farm LLC, which is a farm consisting of Edward McNamee, who just spoke, and Susan Keemer, who was in the audience, and her husband Juan George, who's here in the audience. Susan and Juan have been second-generation farmers. It's a 60-acre preserve farm off Merrick Road, and they are aspiring entrepreneurs seeking a cannabis cultivation license and coupled with a manufacturing license, which is essentially cold pressing the marijuana into like an essential oil. Ultimately, I spoke in July 13th, at the time the ordinance was adopted. I appreciate you having these meetings. It shows that you followed your commitment to actually investigate and hear from everybody on regulating it. And at that time that I spoke, I thought it was a prudent move, like many municipalities, to get in front of it, to basically put it in control for you to be able to regulate it rather than this massive rush without any guidance from the Cannabis Regulatory Commission. However, since then, obviously, the Cannabis Regulatory Commission has issued their rules. They issued them in the end of August. The rules became effective. We now have guidance. And now they've issued out a request for licenses, which they will open up the application process beginning December 15th of this coming month. So I'm here asking that you please regulate and do it quickly so my clients can have the opportunity, and any cultivators like them, to essentially grow what would be a profitable crop. This is a right-to-farm town. Not only is it embodied in the state statute, but you also embodied it in your own ordinance with your own very powerful right-to-farm ordinance. Right now, my clients could, sell it to an industrial farm, and they could do any sort of customary farming practices, spreading manure as much as they can, and none of the adjoining neighbors on the outskirts that were pretty far out can complain about it. Why? Because that's what the right-to-farm ordinance says you can't do. The good thing about cannabis is you could regulate it. And you could regulate it that it's, number one, the state statute already says it has to be grown indoors. So it can't be grown outside. Number two, you could make them mitigate the smell of it, okay? So any noxious odors or anything along those lines have to have odor mitigation controls in compliance. So what I'd recommended previously, and what I would like to submit to the board, is make it, as many towns have done, a conditional use in the farming areas, the ARE zones, and make it required that there has to be a big enough size, farm, not some 1 acre, 2 acre, 3 acre thing, at least a 5 acre or more with a big enough buffer in between any residential developments or anything, so there's never going to be an issue. As far as cultivation and manufacturing are concerned, never have to worry about any retail people coming on site. Why? They're not allowed to sell direct to the consumer. It can only be sold to retail establishments or wholesalers or distributors, okay? So nobody will know what's being grown inside of these greenhouses, whether it's broccoli, spinach, or whatnot, or cannabis, okay? And the security measures are already embedded into the statute. There has to be a security plan. You can also make that security plan required to be presented to your respective boards if you make it a conditional use. So I ask that you do this for a very simple reason. We've heard from both sides. I think we've heard ad nauseum on both sides, right? So Ms. Riddle brought up very important issues, and I respect her for following through, because she made very clear, may not necessarily be her personal view, but she's got a job to do, right? So we all have jobs to do. I've been an attorney for 22 years. That is consisted of being both a prosecutor and a public defender. What I can tell you, which I wholeheartedly agree with Ms. Riddle and the gentleman from CPC who spoke afterwards, is early intervention and education is the most important thing that you could do to combat this.
1 minute.
And also, helping the police get DREs, drug recognition experts, on their existing force. They only have 2 right now. I can tell you it's shooting fish in a barrel if you do not have a DRE on staff to be able to get somebody that's either driving, if they're intoxicated, under any other substance other than alcohol. So what I would say is, how are you going to do that, right? Money. It takes money. You're constantly fighting about finding money every year to get your budget because the costs are always going up. Where can you get that money? Cannabis. A 2% tax on my clients' gross sales, okay? 10 million in gross sales is 200,000 just in tax revenue. Plus, the land that's currently taxed as farmland cannot be taxed as farmland anymore. So you will get the full value of every acre of land, tax-wise, brought back into your tax rolls that's used for cultivation. So that money could be used to hire DRE, drug recognition experts, which is going to happen. You're going to need that regardless if you keep it banned or not. Why? Because people in adjoining towns could still smoke it. And by the way, everybody here could still have it delivered, as Ms. Riddle said.
Excuse me, Mr. Luttrell, your time has expired.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for hearing me, and I please hope we move quickly on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have one question. I'm not sure if you can answer it or maybe the gentleman, Ken? No, not Ken,
I'd be happy.
Ed. Just about, I want to go back to the smell. So if it's grown inside, right, is there some type of an air filtration system that,
Yes.
okay, could you just explain that to me?
So indoor just growing it indoors requires huge amounts of investments in controlling not only the air temperature, but the humidity. In addition to that, there has to be carbon filtration systems on it to keep the whatever smell from going out, and that's what would be required. So most municipalities require some proof of evidence in the presentation before you get your conditional use permit of, well, what kind of system do you have? Do you just have, something you got at Kmart, or I don't even think Kmart's in business anymore, but ultimately, or is it something state-of-the-art process? That way you have, at least your boards have their respective hands on it, and they do a great job. I've been in front of your planning boards a number of times, and they follow through, and I fully expect them to follow through on an issue like this.
So I have a separate question. Again, I'm not quite sure who will answer it, but the mention of security.
Yeah.
So I would like to know what your security plan, you don't need to give me the entire plan today, but if you could just give us two
Sure.
tidbits of what a security plan would look like?
Absolutely. So as part of the application process, you're required to submit an SOP, a standard operating procedure, detailing your security process. So in the interest of security, I can't go into great detail what my client has proposed for theirs, but what I can tell you in summary, it's 24/7 monitored security and somebody 24/7 on premise. So there's constantly, and obviously a secure facility, just no one can just walk in. There's got to be a fenced-in area, constant monitoring. And what I proposed is something I pulled from Red Bank's ordinance, which I would ask you to, is Red Bank requires your licensees to submit the video, the recorded video, to the police department upon request. So if the police department are investigating something, they don't need a subpoena, they just go ahead and say, all right, turn over the video for it, which I think is a great idea, because at the end of the day, let's be honest, obviously, it could be a potential target, obviously, for that, and so ultimately, the police having full access and monitor to that, I think is a great idea.
Thank you.
And really quick, your client is, as far as cultivation and manufacturing, that's it?
Yeah, that's it, no retail, no wholesale.
Because since you've been here in July, I mean, there's numerous towns, Hamilton, they're all putting forth just cultivation, manufacturing, and they're leaving the retail totally out.
I think, at the end of the day, I think it's a great idea. The idea behind it is ultimately, if there are because the delivery licenses are another retail. There's the regular retail brick and mortar store, and then there's what we call the Uber Eats of the delivery side of it. Those are the ones that could pick up those items. So ultimately, if you bring the product closer, the source of it closer to any particular geographic area, it makes it easier for the consumer to get it. Whereas the gentleman, the Navy veteran, had spoken that he has to drive 2 hours to the ATC where he was getting his beforehand. And so ultimately, one other item that I would just touch on that of why it's so important to get the cultivation out is because what's happened in other states is in the beginning there's this mad rush of demand for regulated cannabis because people like the idea that it's regulated and doesn't have the things which Ms. Riddle referenced before, such as mold, mites, and things like that. Those are highly regulated, and you cannot sell that in the state of New Jersey. However, it drives the price up when there's not enough cultivators to be able to facilitate that. And then what does that do? The black market ends up feeding up and filling the void. And so those are the only ones that end up winning out. So that's why I was asking, bring in the cultivation, and we could have discussions all day whether it's good for us or it's bad for us. It's mankind in general would probably make the wrong decisions as a whole all the time. But ultimately, it's here to stay. Let's just try to regulate it, and at least we could do a better job of trying to help the police do their job, and the Youth Alliance do their job of educating our kids.
Brian?
Sir, if I could ask a question, in your research, what do they use for the odor? Like, how do they determine if it's a violation or offensive to the surrounding neighborhood. The reason I ask is, a while ago, we had a gentleman from Garden State Dispensary come give a brief presentation. He invited us to come do a tour. Joe Clark and myself did go on a tour. I will say, as far as security, we were challenged as soon as we pulled in, because
Correct.
it was obvious we weren't there for its intended purpose. But, so security I didn't see as any issue. However, I can say, as soon as we pulled in the parking lot with closed windows, the odor was overwhelming inside the vehicle. So, and I found it ironic that they were speaking about, they had this high-tech air filtration system. So what is the benchmark? Like, how does our code enforcement say?
And that was they were just growing it, right? They were cultivating?
Yes.
That's what it, okay.
Well, it's medicinal, so it's combined. They do growing, cultivation, and distributing for medical.
Okay.
So that is a pretty massive facility,
Yes.
and they've been out for a while, right? They're one of the early alternative treatment centers that have gone out. So the issue with odor control is it really depends on how contained your areas are. So ultimately, the cannabis doesn't stay in one spot that's entire time, it's continually moved. So the more that you can control the cannabis and keep it contained, the more control you have over the dissemination of odor. However, in situations, some of the early ATCs, they got it, they literally, they could pop and vent open their greenhouses, and ultimately there's nothing stopping or filtrating that air. That's not what we're intending to do. So ultimately, we're looking to be a small cottage farmer, and if you have a good enough filtration system, you can mitigate any smell that's going to come out of those facilities as long as it's contained. And so the carbon filtration systems that they have, these state-of-the-art carbon filtration systems, will mitigate the smell. However, you have to have it contained. If it's not contained, then it doesn't matter what's going to happen, because once it comes out, you can't control that odor once it's out.
I'm just thinking down the road, assuming we approve something like this, and now it is offensive to the neighbors, how are we going to enforce it from a code enforcement perspective? Like, what is the benchmark, or, there is no, like a decibel for audio type thing.
So I have a question for you, Brian. So when you drove up, did you smell it when you drove up?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so once you got right to the facility, is that what you're saying?
From the street, pulling in to the driveway with windows closed, air conditioning on.
Could I ask if there were any, like, I want to call them, buffer areas? Like, for example, is it here and then all of this property around it?
We pulled,
Or it was
it's
right on
right
the
on a
street.
highway,
Okay.
so we're pulling in the parking lot off the
Okay.
highway.
So
But-
that's obviously another thing is the buffer area is
Right.
going to be a huge component, right? So your current zoning ordinance has a 50-foot buffer requirement for between any residential area and an existing farm. Perhaps 50 is too small in a situation like this. So ultimately, I would leave that to the judgment of the governing body and the boards and requiring the rest buffer. Maybe a 100-foot buffer, a 150-foot buffer, even a 200-foot buffer off the streets and all adjoining areas is
I
going
was
to help
just
by
asking,
mitigating.
from your experience, obviously researching this, what you've seen other towns doing, or
I've had
other-
the same experience you've had going to other facilities in other areas. I mean, the retail establishments, I mean, the second you walk in, you're going to smell it. Ultimately, there's no getting, you can't stop the odor once you come onto the premises, or certainly, and as I said before, the lack of or the less containment you have of the product is going to then hamper your efforts to try to control and mitigate odor. But that's where the planning and the design comes in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Freddie Meredith?
Evening, Mayor and councils. My name's Freddie Herrera. I'm actually not a Howell resident yet. As everyone's aware, the housing market is a little bit crazy. But I do reside in Freehold. I do have intentions of getting into the industry, and the reason why I do have intentions of getting into the industry, I'm a disabled veteran. I served 12 years in the military. I was 2 combat tours. I was blown up. My PTSD was very severe, to the point that I was homeless too. And cannabis actually saved my life, to the point that I was able to help me suppress my PTSD. I was able to focus a lot more. And from the use of cannabis, I was actually able to graduate college with my degree in construction management. And this spring, I'm supposed to also start my master's at Columbia University.
Awesome. Congratulations.
So, thank you.
That's a huge feat. Amazing on you.
But if I do end up being able to find a house here in Howell, my intentions are to try to, if everyone ends up voting for yes, or everyone figures out the regulations and the rules and zoning of everything, how it's going to be, my objective as with my company, in which it's going to be in retail, is to provide union wages for residents here within Howell. Majority of my profits, I want to use it to help redevelop and reinvest into the community. And I also want to have a program where I'm educating residents and kids in all aspect of the uses that could come from cannabis and the abuses that, because I'm not gonna lie, some people do abuse it. But these are what my objectives are. If if you guys end up passing everything here, I really don't have much else to say. Thank you.
Well, what you said was impressive. I mean, Masters at Columbia is outstanding. I mean, outstanding.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming up to speak. And I just want to say again, if you remember, I'm going to, Ms. Riddle said before, there are 6 different types of licenses, and we don't know what license, if any, will come into Howell. So I'm not sure, it's not only dependent upon our vote, but also on where the licenses are going to be placed throughout the state. So I just want, I want you to, even if we all voted yes today, that you still have, there's still other hurdles that have to be, passed before
So
we might be able to
it sounds
get
like he's
into
more of a micro license.
Yes, I am a micro license. I'm also Hispanic too as well. So I would be actually going under for the micro.
Okay,
business.
okay, I wasn't, okay.
So, and which, according to, from what I'm aware of, aside from the conditional licenses, micros are also a priority over the actual full license, so.
It is. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Barbara Dixell, you're on this list. I don't see her.
It's in.
Oh, did you want to talk about this topic, or did you want to talk about the regular agenda, the next meeting that we're going to start in 3 minutes?
No, not this topic.
Okay. I just want to clarify because,
Consent agenda.
okay. All right, so I'm going to give this back to you then.
Mayor, maybe we'll have one more comment. I'll make it quick.
Okay.
Hey, Mark
Please.
Parisi, Two Castle Court. I just wanted to thank the governing body for inviting the Board of Ed members to come and speak tonight. I did email the clerk and the manager and respectfully decline the invitation just because I represent a regional school district and there's 8 municipalities, and I didn't think that it would be appropriate for me to speak on behalf of a Board of Education that represents other municipalities that may make other different legislative or policy decisions on this issue. So that's the reason why I didn't want to, speak on it tonight. So I'm not speaking in my official capacity as a board member. But I did want to say that when you guys took up the ordinance back over the summertime, that my concern, I expressed my concern at that time that this issue would become politicized because, let's be honest, I mean it somewhat is, and I recommended at that time that maybe. You guys put it on the ballot as a referendum question. Well, I don't know if anyone's aware, but this past November, Lacey Township did just that. They put their governing body put a non-binding referendum question on the ballot to ask the residents of Lacey Township if they wanted cannabis in their town or not, and the residents voted it down. And I don't know how quickly this governing body is planning on acting on these particular ordinances, because I know that there's some time constraints with getting the licenses or whatnot. But if for some reason this kind of extends into the, the winter and the spring, I would just ask the governing body maybe to consider, at the primary election, putting a non-binding referendum on the ballot and maybe asking residents to be like, are you okay with having, cultivation and, other types of uses that don't involve retail? Because I would imagine most, of the concerns revolve around maybe retail sales of cannabis in Howell, and maybe people would be more open-minded to other types of businesses that don't involve retail. So that's just a suggestion that I would make. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would be curious, however, Mr. Parisi, I'm sure the regional high school superintendent has some opinion that he's giving guidelines to the different high schools. So I would be curious as to the generalization of what's coming from the superintendent in this regard.
Well, again, the board president speaks on behalf of the board. I'm not the board president. I'm not here to speak.
So we should invite the board president then.
Well,
Could we do that?
All board members from the regional and the K district were invited. So if Mr. Bruno's not here, I'm not here to speak on behalf of the
I
board.
believe he also emailed us his statement that he released.
I believe so too,
Then
yes.
we should have it read into the meeting.
I have their proclamation here from the Freehold Regional High School District.
Yeah, I'm aware that the superintendent did email the governing body, and I mean, maybe Mr. Harris, a copy of a resolution that was adopted by the board prior to me being on the Board of Ed. But again, I'm not here to speak on behalf of the board or in that official capacity, so thank you for your time.
Thank you. I do have one more question on this. I'm sorry. Because the license, so I guess I'm going, Larry, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask you. So the licenses are coming out now, or the applications, the RFPs are coming out now.
Yeah, so they're opening up a rolling application process beginning December 15th.
Okay.
They're not shutting the door necessarily, but there's only 37 licenses that
In
they'll
this round.
issue in this round. However, there's no limit on micro licenses.
Let me, please.
Sure.
So I guess my question is, and I'm just going to use this as an example, please. If Farm X applies for the license and gets approved, right? And says they're going to put they're going to build, in Howell, and it's going to meet all the requirements. If we waited, does that license, what happens to that license? Does that get revoked? Wait, there's two parts. Does it get revoked or something else? One. Two, if the person receives the license, but the town, whomever it is, decides against it, do they lose that license, or are they able to transfer that to another town that will allow them to provide that service?
Sure, so the first question I'll answer is you will never get the license either, and I'm going to break the licenses down into three categories. There's annual licenses, there's conditional licenses, and this is for each class, and then there's the micro business license. For the annual license and for the conditional license, a part of the application process for your application to be deemed complete requires a resolution from the governing body indicating
Gotcha.
that their use is not prohibited, and if there's a limit on the amount of licenses allowed in that municipality, that issuance of the license would not exceed that limit.
Gotcha.
So similar to alcohol in Class C establishments. So the second question is, so it would never get revoked, it would just, it
Never
would
come, you'd never
become
get
an
it.
issue. The conditional license doesn't have the requirement, and so theoretically, you could apply, I'm sorry, not the conditional, the micro license doesn't have that requirement for the resolution. However, obviously, you can't operate, so theoretically, you could apply as a micro license, and then make that application conditional, and then hope to get, all the stars aligned sometime beforehand, and if you don't get them, and that beforehand is, under the statute and the regulations, 180 days, which can be extended. But theoretically, if you don't get your act together within a year, you don't get the license and you're never operating.
Okay.
May I use here?
Yes, please.
I have to ask this question. I know we're running out of time, but what does farming in the agriculture world, what does it do to our water supply? How does it affect our water supply?
So I can only speak for this particular farm,
Yeah.
but ultimately, it's no different than any other crop. and we have a 300-foot private well on Merrick Farm. So right now we've grown, we're an organic farm, so ultimately we've grown organic lettuce. We've grown, this past season, we focused a lot on garlic, which we fermented into black garlic, which, by the way, it's at the farm stand, and anyone wants it. But ultimately, the water usage is no more intense than any of the other crops that have been grown.
But I mean, after what Krista Riddle had mentioned about the THC levels and all that stuff, is that not a factor? Is that not a concern for our water supply?
I think that they have to propose, just like we used to, like the warehouses traffic study, they have to submit a wastewater storage, like a plan.
That's correct.
That's
Okay.
part of the plan.
No, but I just
They will
wanted
not
to-
get the license without that.
Okay.
Overall, would this not be a commercial business? This isn't really falling under the Right to Farm Act.
Well, we're a commercial
Correct,
farm.
it's commercial.
I mean, we're effectively a commercial farm. We operate.
Do you have filtration, I'm sorry, is there a filtration system at this point in time?
We don't have a filtration
Okay.
system for the existing stuff because of the way we do it. It's organic farming. There's no chemicals or anything that are leaching into the ground or anything like that. But under the situation with cannabis, you have to, as part of your SOPs that you submit, one of those things has to be your environmental impact and your wastewater management. And so you ultimately just can't take the water that's been fumed through the cannabis and say, all right, here you go, find your new home.
I think that's where the councilwoman was going.
Yeah.
The water is.
It will
yeah.
not end up back into
Yeah.
the waste, into the watershed.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very
Does
much.
that water recirculate? Just asking.
So there are facilities that have recirculation, but those are usually for aquaculture, where they'll
Okay.
have a rotating basis, and
Yep.
but that wouldn't be something that we have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this? No? I would like to then close this portion of the public meeting. And may I make a motion to end this?
I'll make a motion to end this portion of the meeting.
May I have a second?
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Richmond, seconded by Councilman Bonovich. Councilman Bonovich,
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell,
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond.
Yes.
And Mayor Berger.
Yes.
And the motion is passed.
Okay, we're going to do, if you wouldn't mind, just giving us like an 8-minute break so we could just run to the loo, and everybody else who needs to do that, please enjoy. We'll be right back. Are we ready?
Yes.
Round 3?
Round 3.
Round 3. Okay. Today is November 30th, 2021, and we will begin our regular meeting, which would usually have started at 7, is now at almost 7:35, almost 7:40. So I would like to call the meeting to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Councilman Bonovich,
Present.
Councilwoman O'Donnell.
Here.
Councilwoman Richmond.
Present.
And Mayor Berger.
Present. May I have a motion to accept the regular meeting minutes of October 26th?
I'll make the motion to accept the minutes from October 26th.
Second?
Councilman Bonovich.
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond.
Yes.
And Mayor Berger.
Yes.
And the minutes from October 26th have been accepted.
Thank you. So, who is going to present?
So we are required to have a brief discussion on our best practices inventory, which is done every year. I'll kick it over to Lou, who completes the inventory, and he has some information to report.
Thank you, Mr. Palazzo.
Mayor and council wanted to inform you that in 2021's best practices inventory, the township achieved 22 and a half out of 23 points on
Excellent.
on this
Well
year's
done.
survey. So our final state aid payment does remain intact. It actually checked the bank account, and it actually was deposited there this evening. So it has been provided to the governing body. It has been posted to the township website. So if there's any questions by yourselves and/or the public in general, I would be happy to entertain them.
Thank you, and If we wanted to do that, are we doing that now, or are we waiting for the open comments? Just,
Whatever your pleasure. It is a requirement of the best practices inventory on the state level that we have some, that it is brought up as a discussion item. So it's to the pleasure of the council, should you have any questions, comments, complaints, concerns.
so I think we should do it now, because I'm not sure if there are a lot of questions on it.
Sure.
So does anybody have questions that is specific to the 2021 best practice inventory that is on the website? And if you have any questions regarding it, please, you could ask Mr. Palazzo at this time. There being no questions, I would like to then move down. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Lou.
I would like to move down to reports of town officials. So there's a couple things. I have a question. Hanukkah was not today, or the 7th. Is there a reason why we waited so long as to not do the menorah?
It was Sunday and you blew it.
Sunday night,
Well-
sundown.
I actually just had that conversation today.
It's going to be over by the time you do it.
Please.
Stephen Fetcher, who organizes this every year, was looking at the calendar, and to do it prior to Hanukkah, we would have been up against the Thanksgiving holiday, which would have backed it up even further. So
I know.
we would have been doing our tree lighting and menorah lighting in mid-November at that point. And
So if I may make a recommendation, I know that usually we try to do it at the same time, but the holiday did begin days ago, and so I think it would have been more appropriate maybe just to have the menorah lit. I'm just as, you know, so I mean, if that happens again with dates that cause it, I mean, at least we could, you know, be respectful to the people in the town and light the menorah when it should be lit.
Good, go downstairs tomorrow night and do it.
Also, although I realize it's late, I mean, there's still an element of respect to put it up
Absolutely.
at this point in time.
Well,
Mr.
it is
Manager?
lit.
It is,
Oh, it
maybe
is
you
appropriately.
could light
Okay.
light the 3 candles that
Okay.
are,
It is.
I did, oh, it
okay.
is?
I
Okay.
didn't.
They
okay.
started on
I
Sunday.
didn't see it.
Came in. Okay. Well, our apologies, and I'm glad that it's lit appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so on the 7th, there will be the tree lighting will be on the 7th.
Yes, ma'am.
And are we going to have like the different events that were going on, same as last year?
Yes.
Did you want to talk about what's going on? You have any plans about it? No, not yet?
Well, Santa is coming, by fire truck as
Thank
usual.
goodness.
I believe he's having an ice skating rink and.
Okay, that's what I was, he did it last,
Petting zoo,
2
I
years
believe.
ago.
Yeah, he was trying to return it to how it was pre-COVID.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
there will
I
be
hope it's a
several
little bit,
events.
yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay. Also, I wanted to let you know that at the senior center on December 4th, from 8 to 12 a.m., if you need a shot, a COVID shot, if you need the first, second, or third dose, you can go to the senior center. They do have documents that are associated with their sheet in case you need it, so you can go on the website, on Howell website, to the senior center and gather the information so that if you do want to have any additional shots or your first ones, I would recommend that you go to the senior center. At this point, I will open to Councilman Bonovich.
You beat me to it with COVID on December 4th, but one thing, I'd like to just thank the senior center and the PBA and members of council that kept with tradition and brought the seniors their lunches and their meals in their baskets on Thanksgiving Eve. I've done it the last 3 years. I apologize I wasn't there, but just happy to see council participate along with the PBA and the fire. So thank you.
Councilwoman O'Donnell.
Well, I was fortunate. The day that the PBA and the Senior Center did the food giveaway, it was a very nice event. Melanie Decker had the floor. Everything was so well defined on the tables that looked better than a grocery store. Everything was lined up to perfection, as she always does. It was an excellent event, very nice. Police officers that are not on duty give up their own personal time without compensation, so that says quite a bit about our department. Also, as we said, that we're doing the tree lighting on the 7th. Farmingdale Borough is doing their live nativity Sunday the 5th, although that's not ours. It's sort of our, I guess, our baby center of town in a sense. So they're doing their live nativity, which they do every year. It's very nice. And at this point, and at this time of the year, please pay particular attention to what you're doing with electricity, your lights, fire hazards. We had a fire not long ago in town. It was devastating to the family. But this is the time of year that we always hear the horror stories. Families lose their whole home. Luckily, in many cases, no one is hurt, but that's not always the case. It's just a terrible time of year. I think that we're so happy to get our homes decorated and do things that maybe we forget that the extension cords from last year are maybe 5 years old, not new, that kind of thing. So please, just give it a double check, and if you have any questions, call your local fire department. They are more than happy to help you with any questions you may have concerning lighting and whatnot.
Councilwoman?
Manager Brian, can you give us an update on the solar, where we are with the solar?
I actually was just reaching out to our purchasing agent, so with our change, I am hoping he's going to be a lot quicker with getting information back.
Okay.
But he's busy getting out the RFPs right now for the new year, so
Okay.
I hope for the
Next
early
meeting.
next year, we'll have some concrete info.
Okay. Also, where are we at with the efficiency study? How are we moving along with that? It's probably in your reports, but
It was.
it's also in mine.
Members of the team have been meeting with all the designated departments. They've been corresponding directly with them. They've been meeting with various unions and their representatives. They've had their IT expert come in and talk to the departments about their needs and how they're functioning. So I understand they've also reached out to the governing body to try and get your input. So
Do you have an idea about when we should have some reports coming in, recommendations?
not as of yet.
Okay.
I know they started first with DPW because they had a conflict with one of their members, so they actually got started before the other departments.
Was that November or October?
I believe it was October when they got started with them.
Okay, thank you. I want to make mention of the Soldier Memorial Eagle Scout Project. I did reach out to Lisa Dowd. Thank you very much, Lisa. I had asked her if she would help with the shade tree and put some shrubbery around there to kind of make it look a little nicer, looked a little blah. And I know that you met with your committee, and you guys agreed to work with Paul Novello and kind of fix that up a little bit. And I know down the road, the Eagle Scout is planning on doing something on a grander scale. Because he's starting he started the project, he's moved everything over there, and it's starting to really come along. So thank you, Lisa, for doing that. Today is Giving Tuesday. I'm sure most of you have seen that. So from now until, I guess, the end of time, we should remember those that are in need and give what you can and help. I see there's giving trees a lot of places. I know Certified Auto Mall has a tree up. A lot of places have people who are in need that they give little lists of what they need for their kids and their families. So if we could remember those people, that would be great for Giving Tuesday. And I think that's all I have. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
I would like to piggy on that, just to say, the food pantry. If everybody out there, if you can hear me, please, if you can donate something small, even from your own pantry, to donate to the food pantry. It would be so helpful to the people in this town who really need the food, who need to feel the specialness of the holiday season. So if you have it in your hearts out there, I would really appreciate if you can donate to our food pantry for Howell residents. And I just forgot to say, there's a gingerbread house decorating contest. It's on it goes through December 6th through the 17th. Like, you could find this on the website as well, I believe, right?
Yes.
And so if you're interested, please indulge. Mr. Geegan.
Let's see, the items that have not been covered yet. The township's winding down our milling and repaving projects for the year because of the cold weather onset. It'll be restarting in the spring. November, the township repaved 18 residential roadways, along with large portions of both Birdsall and Maxim Southard Road. Additionally, the contractor started the reconstruction of the Lake Louise Dam and culvert earlier this month. Project will continue through the winter, and Lanes Pond Road will remain detoured for about 11 months. Also, DPW started the first round of brush pickups in early November in Zone F as in Frank. They are now well into Zone A as in Alpha. This is about the halfway mark for the first round. To date, approximately 180 loads of leaves have been collected. And that is all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman, did you want to just
Yeah,
mention
I'm
that?
sorry. I wanted to mention the Howell Adopt-A-Family. It was really part of our Giving Tuesday, but Howell Adopt-A-Family, it's a holiday giveaway. If you want to help, there's a flyer on the Township Facebook page and the website. Drop-off dates is December 2nd and 3rd, 10 to 6, 10 to 4, here at the building. And there's more information on the Facebook page, but we have a lot of families that are in need here. And I just also want to mention Captain Tom Rizzo's son. He did a equipment drive, and they were collecting equipment, all different kind of sporting equipment. Certified Automall has it. It was great. It was a very big success as far as him collecting. Unfortunately, he still has a lot of stuff to give away. So if you know of a sports organization or a family in need that needs sports equipment, please reach out to me or Certified Automall or Captain Rizzo. He did a really nice job, Nikki, but he's got a lot of stuff left over for anybody that's in need.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there other professionals?
Yeah, I'm going back there.
Sorry, I interrupted.
Mr. Clark?
Nothing for me.
Matt, nothing? Okay, so at this point, Mr. Harris, do you have?
I forgot something,
Go
if I
ahead.
could.
Sure.
Well, two things. First, when we have our next cannabis meeting, could we please have Chief Kudrick come back and sort of recircle some of the things that I had brought up so that I have a better and a full picture? So I'd like him to come back if possible. And and the other thing, in way of, I'm asking, I know that we need consent from the majority of council to put something on the agenda, and I am asking council to approve putting on the agenda only a council raise. Not yes or no, you're doing it. I'd just like support in putting it on the agenda. So if you would, whatever, you could answer them tonight, answer them via email, whatever you choose. But I'm requesting. Because that's the new format, I understand, that we need a majority from council to place something new on the agenda, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm trying to follow the rules. Thank you.
Okay. All right, at this point, I would like to open up the meeting for, what? Oh, I thought somebody said wait. I was like, what? I would like to open up this portion of the meeting for public comment on the consent agenda items listed on the agenda. Barbara Dixell.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Barbara Dixell, resident, Howell Township. Two things I want to talk about tonight. The first being, most of us, I'm sure if not all of us in Howell Township, received assessments on our houses this week. I need to know why all of a sudden I got a $20,000 raise, an assessment. My neighbor's gotten $30,000. Somebody I know on Asbury got more than that. Why? And what's going on? And are we going to get beat on the head with a massive increase? I did speak to the tax assessor's office, and they said it has to do with all the houses being sold at record prices and record time in the township. And I don't know if it's a township or Monmouth County, but I need to know. Somebody needs to shed some light on this.
So I'm going to say that not going to interrupt you. That was your first question. We will have that answered. You said you had two things. Do you want me to have that answered first? Okay. Brian or Matt, please assist.
It is driven by the market. Obviously, the real estate market's booming right now. That's it. It's record sales. It's not Howell Township. It's not Monmouth County. It's all over the place.
Could you,
It's literal.
could you explain possibly how it might affect people's taxes or might not? I think that's really what the crux of the
Right.
question is.
We are still going to collect the same amount to be raised by revenue, whatever the governing body decides on. It's not going to be an automatic tax increase. There is an adjustment there. So
So we have to vote on that before it would automatically go into place.
It's part of the budget
that's the
process.
budget.
I'm just trying to.
Yes.
It's part of the budget process, and if everyone's getting hit 20, 30, 40,000, the rate has to come down.
Yes.
That's
That's
it.
what they told me, that the rate may come down, and you may pay less taxes instead of more taxes. But you still want all, they're selling houses at record rates.
We'll see, and also just to add to that, Monmouth County is rare. It is a pilot, it's a pilot program. We get assessed yearly.
Yeah.
A lot of other counties, they didn't join into that program. So besides, these the record rates of selling these homes and 3 people, 4 people leaving the city bidding on the same house, with that going up and just the system that we're in, this Monmouth County pilot program, we're kind of going to get hit. We're getting hit unless we return it to you with a lower tax rate.
Yeah, well, what this is going to do without an explanation from the governing body is going to scare the pants off every citizen in Howell Township who owns a home and who just got a card in the mail that said $20 or $30 or $40,000. You people need to put out a statement.
And a responsible budget, absolutely.
You really need to put out a statement tonight in broad, I don't care, newspaper, on your website or anything, that even though you got this $40,000 or $20,000 hike in the assessment of your house because the neighborhood houses are going at record rates, your taxes may be lower. If they strike the tax rate lower, you might get a reduction in taxes.
Correct.
You need to put that out, and I mean that seriously.
Some people will, and some people will go up, but hopefully more go down.
But the people I talk to are absolutely panicking.
I agree.
You people need to actually put out a statement.
I got sticker shock too, trust me.
Hello.
And the second thing I want to talk about, you're not going to be happy about. Either am I. I want to make a citizen's motion from the floor that no member, sitting member of the governing body of the Township of Howell has the right to call any member of the public at home and rail at them or yell at them for something they said, whatever. Yeah, what I said wasn't exactly correct, wasn't nice, but still in all, it's freedom of speech in this country. And if you don't like it, what has to be said in this chamber. Not that any member of this governing body has the right to call a citizen at home and rail at them because you don't like what I said. I want to make a citizen's motion from the floor that this can't be done, and I want it done tonight.
Joe, as far as ethics and our behavior, I mean, is calling a resident.
I have no idea what the facts are.
She's saying someone
so
called
in
her.
fact-
Facts, I'll tell it to you.
Sure, who called you?
Right, fine. Miss Richmond called me at home after, when you were passing June, July, and August, when you were not passing the bond ordinances that had to be passed, and Monmouth County finally nailed you on August 10th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and a couple of meetings afterwards, several members of the governing body weren't available. But all of you, no matter what it is, can be available by telephone. No matter when, no matter where, you can be available by telephone all the time. So I suggested that, right or wrong, I thought if Ms. Richmond can't be here all the time or on the phone, I suggested that she may want to think of resigning. So, very good. So she was real pissed off, and I understand it. But you
Excuse me,
don't
Ms.
have the-
Dixell.
Don't have the right to call me at home. Don't call me at home,
Okay.
because I'm not going to put up.
Well, I wasn't here to address you, so I just thought that would be the adult thing to do. And I recorded the whole conversation. I did not yell at you. I called you and I had a conversation with you, and I asked you if you had any concerns, please talk to me directly. And it's Councilwoman when I'm sitting up here. But I was not here when you made your, when you said what you said. So I called you, as I thought was the right thing to do, to address your concerns. So I do apologize, but I recorded the whole conversation, Barbara Dixell, and I did not yell at you.
You weren't very pleasant, and you were complaining that your kids don't
This is
have
me.
to... You don't have to hear this, well, you know what, zip it up. Your kids don't have to...
Don't worry,
hear
I'll
it.
never call you again.
Don't
No
worry
problem.
about it. I hope you don't.
I won't.
I want to make a citizen's motion from the floor that this council has to pass a resolution tonight. No member of this governing body can call a resident at home. I don't care what it is. Do it here in chamber. Well, where are you?
So here's what I'm going to say. I'm taking the middle here to say, I don't think that we could make an absolute that no member of council can call somebody, because then when one of us gets an email or something like that that we are supposed to respond to, then we're not following, our ordinance. So, I mean, I understand the reasonableness of what you're saying. I do think there should be the same protocol that should be followed on the internet, should be followed when we're dealing with any kind of townsperson. If someone on this dais or on that dais treats you inappropriately, you need to make sure and come here and have that discussion with Mr. Clark. I know that. I understand. I'm supporting you, Barbara. I'm not supporting you. All I'm saying is I understand what you're saying, and I don't think that we could make an ordinance that way that is 100%.
I'm not asking
Please,
for an
Mr.
ordinance.
Clark, if you could help me with that.
Yeah, I don't think a blanket prohibition on contacting constituents is reasonable or smart. I mean, there are instances where Ms. Dixell has contacted me, left a message, and asked me to call her back. So there may be situations
I'm
where
saying.
somebody wants a call back. So a blanket prohibition is not going to work. I think maybe we can suggest that Councilwoman Richmond not call Ms. Dixell anymore, unless she specifically asked. And I think that's probably reasonable under the
That's fair.
circumstances.
All right, thank you. Like I said, sometimes you make comments, and I make comments, and other people make comments that people don't like. I fully understand that. And they have a right to their opinion, I have a right to my opinion. But I just feel that to be reprimanded at home for a comment you made at the council is not proper.
So I wasn't on the call, but I will say, if that did occur, you're absolutely correct. I would agree with you. I did not hear the call, I was not on the call. And I'm saying, if that did happen, then you're 100% correct. No one should treat another human being in that fashion.
Just make your comment here, rail at me here, yell and scream at me here,
well-
that's fine, but not at home. That's all I'm saying.
I respect what you're saying.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And please put the comment out about the assessments. You must put something out for every citizen of this town, because everyone is having a hairy canary.
Thank you. Lisa Dowd?
It's interesting that Mrs. Dixell brings that up because, it goes both ways. The public calls us at home, and especially about the postcards and other issues. And typically when they call, they're not happy. That's why they actually call us at home, because they have a concern. So it is a two-way street, but I understand to a degree.
Well, I mean, if that's her perception, right? So if that's her perception, then that's what happened.
I have a recording to say otherwise, but that's okay. If you'd like to see that, Mr.
Lisa?
Clark, I'll be happy to send it to you. Hello, Lisa, sorry.
Don't call me at home. Hi, my name is Lisa Dowd. I live at 93 Merrick Road in Howell. Here on behalf of the Shade Tree Commission and the Green Team tonight. So I just wanted to go over some projects that we are currently working on for both committees. Shade Tree Commission, hazardous tree inventory, we do have a quote around $60,000 for the hazardous tree inventory. We just had a final question for Sherry regarding when would be the best time to do it. So she did get back to Paul with that information, and we're just awaiting the final quote from her to get that done. She actually can start in the winter. She said that's actually a good time for her to do it because she can see the trees better without the leaves on them. So as soon as we have that, we'll review it at the next commission meeting. I also wanted to follow up on the proposed woodlands management ordinance revisions. They were forwarded to everyone in March. And I know everybody had the chance to take a look at them. Councilwoman O'Donnell and I met in June. I followed up with everybody in August, followed up on October 12th. At that time, we were awaiting comments from Ron Cucchiera, and then followed up again on November 22nd and haven't had a response regarding any revisions. So I just wanted to find out if there's an update on that.
There is. I mean, you've seen our council meetings this year. It hasn't been a priority, and I apologize for that. So I'll look at it some more. You know, I had some concerns about the extent of shade trees' sort of ability to opine on planning board applications and that's likely to be excised because I don't think it's consistent with your statutory mission.
Okay.
But some of it having to do with like increased fees for tree removal and that we'll look at.
Okay, that would be great. What do you think the chances are for January we could?
Yeah, we can't introduce an ordinance in December, so that's off the table, probably January.
Okay, great, thank you. Second, I wanted to just talk about the Easy Street project. We did the initial planting at Easy Street with volunteers, and we planted over 200 trees and shrubs. I did have some communication with Matt and Joe regarding some concerns that they had, so I did email the proposal and plan to both of you to review. So when you get a chance.
Yeah, I'll get you some formal comments as early as tomorrow.
Okay.
I did see 90% of it sounds great, looks great.
Okay.
There are a few things that I have some concerns with Green Acres, so I'll
Okay.
give you some feedback
Okay.
later this week.
Okay, that would be great. So Matt's going to get us our comments. Our next phase is planned for spring 2022. If you haven't been to the Easy Street site, it was a slated dog park, kind of fell into disrepair. And DPW was nice enough to go and clear out all the brush. So we did the initial planting and very quickly, I might add, because of impending rain. But the goal really for that site is to attain the National Wildlife Federation Community Wildlife Habitat certification as a wildlife-friendly community and make it a place where the community can go and, you know, see different trees and plants that they can incorporate into their landscape and just enjoy it. It's a very peaceful place, so I would recommend if you have a second and just want to sit in the parking lot and enjoy yourself. It's very quiet right now. The other project we're working on is the rain garden project. So just to give everyone, in case you're not aware of what a rain garden does, a rain garden is a depressed area in the landscape that collects rainwater from a street and allows it to soak into the ground, reduces runoff and flooding, and filters pollutants carried into the stormwater runoff. So we met with Rutgers Water Resources team and visited 6 potential sites in the town, along with Justin Yost and Paul Novello. The sites that we finalized for the first 4 sites for the projects are going to be Soldier Memorial, Okerson, the Little League Park there. We also, it wasn't on our original list, but we went to Monmouth Ridings Park, which if you guys know is the little park. They do have a bit of runoff and the park does need some work. So with the development going on in that area, we felt that that would be a good project. And Lemon Road and West Farms Road intersection, there's actually a corner lot on that road that's owned by the New Jersey Water Authority. And there is flooding on that area. So Rutgers is reaching out to New Jersey Water Authority to obtain their permission for us to do a project on that site. Right now, it's just an empty lot. So,
Do you think you could get them to kind of split it with us?
we actually budgeted for the project. So, yeah. So we approved the first $10,000 for Water Resources to come, do their site inspections. They'll do all the plans. They'll give us a full set of plans for each site. And then they'll actually be on site for the planting, excavation, whatever needs to be done to create the rain garden. And then after that, the plans are ours we own them. So we can move forward and build other rain garden projects if we want to do that. So, so we're really looking at beginning the work on the first site in spring with volunteers from the community, supervised by the Rutgers Water Resources team. And just, you know, the team that came out to visit our town was really impressed with the town overall and how many parks we have. But they've done numerous projects throughout the state. If you get a chance, they have a webpage. It's the Rutgers Water Resources webpage. And they really know what they're doing. So I think this will be a great project for the town, and it'll be a wonderful community project for everybody to come together. The other project I wanted to bring up is Winston Park. I know we've kind of been going back and forth on the brush hog, so I'm not sure what the final... Yeah, the brush hog.
Sure, so I think it's checked out. You're just going to you'll have to circle up with Paul on it. I mean, I don't know if it requires sort of special knowledge to run. I'd really rather have somebody who knows how to use it than, you know, liability and whatnot.
Okay, so the Winston Park site, we actually have been going back and forth with Joe on using a brush hog. We went there with some weed whackers. It's just, you know, there's a lot of brush that needs to be cleared. You know, this summer we just had a lot of rain and it grew really quickly. So in order to just give the trees a chance to grow, we want to clear out some of the brush. So in the spring we can go in and mulch the trees and just get everything ready for spring. But it's something that we're going to have to do a planned maintenance on until the trees get large enough to grow on their own.
Lisa,
So-
may I ask you, I want to go back, and you had mentioned about Rutgers splitting the cost. Where does that money come from for that project, the water project that you were just talking about?
It will come from the tree fund.
The tree fund?
Yeah.
Okay,
Because all those projects are going to incorporate trees.
okay. You mentioned volunteers, and I know it's probably way past that, but I know the National Honor Society students are always looking for volunteer hours. I meant to email you when it was a little warmer, but it's always a good idea. If you want to reach out to me, I have a bunch of students that are looking for some volunteer hours. They would love to help you.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, we actually had a couple of the students come out to Easy
Good.
Street and help us.
Awesome.
So,
Great.
Yeah, they were
Thank you.
great. You know, and part of the goal with these projects is really to get the community involved and give the community ownership of these projects moving forward. So people can go by and be like, hey, that's our tree, we worked on that. And then we're also going to do the planting at Soldier Memorial for the memorial there. So we'll do that in the spring. And just wanted to give a brief overview of 2022 proposed projects. These were projects that we kind of started talking about in 2021, but 2022, we really want to push them forward. One, the proposed arboretum. I know it was something that I spoke about a couple months ago. We did have the opportunity to meet with Rutgers Landscape Architecture Department, and we've been talking to them about a potential partnership so they would be able to come in and do a layout for an arboretum project for us.
What was the location on that?
We actually were looking at Winter Run.
Okay.
Over on Southern. It's a Monmouth County Park property. We did talk to Monmouth County Park System, and they are willing to partner with us. So, you know, we would have to obviously work on an agreement that's mutually beneficial to both of us, but they don't have any real plans for that piece of property other than creating a path across the street from the reservoir to kind of take some traffic off of there. They did redo the building there for the 4-H, but other than that,
Turned out nice.
yeah, they don't have any other landscaping type projects, so. So we're currently just waiting on Rutgers to get their commitment. As soon as we have that, we'll submit a strategic plan and budget to council and town officials to review and comment on. And then, of course, we'd have to talk to Monmouth County Park System on how we would create the land use agreement with them. The other thing that we've had some feedback from the community on is ash trees. So if you're not aware, Howell does have a large number of ash trees that are now dead or dying due to the emerald ash borer. They're not savable. They either have to be cut down or they're going to fall down.
No, I counted them in my development as 62, and they're
Yeah.
dead.
So
Is that not part of the dangerous trees, though? I mean, that was
gonna, you know,
incorporated in?
she's going to look at them. I mean, obviously, if they're street trees, they'll be looked at. I think one thing we need to think about is a lot of people have these
On their property.
on their properties. So, you know, we are considering maybe we can do some type of one-for-one.
Be
you know,
very careful what you're going to say.
give you a tree.
Well, meaning the resident, if they paid the cost to take down a tree, there's also a cost of a new tree, and you would like to see new trees in their place.
We would like to see new
Agreed.
trees. Yes.
So, something we would have to clear with that type of project is that shade trees jurisdiction doesn't extend to private property.
And we're not asking
So,
anybody to do
any kind of
anything.
tree exchange like that we'd have to just carefully look at and make sure that
Could it be a
it's-
pickup type thing?
We'd have to look at it. I mean, like I said, shade trees jurisdiction is extraordinarily limited.
Yeah.
Those ash trees have been a nightmare for 10 years now, you know, little by little, you know, trying to get them down on common properties, you know, neighbors trying to help each other, get rid of them, and, yeah, this is like the locust plague of the Bible.
Yeah.
It just doesn't give up, yeah.
It doesn't, I
And
mean,
we have so
you know,
many of them.
We've had a lot of comments from the community and, you know, people are cutting them down out of their yards. You know, and I think we're just trying to
Yeah.
think of something we can do to help people alleviate the cost of putting in a new tree. So, so just something to think about. Obviously, we'd have to, you know, talk about how we do it, but it is something that the community is concerned about.
Yeah, we always win the award Tree City, so
We do.
we're just
We've
cutting
been
them down and not
choosing-
replacing them. It's not a good
Well,
thing.
I mean,
Yeah,
could we
it's
do
gotta
something
go.
like we do with the saplings? I know that it's not going to replace the huge tree that they have, but we do sapling giveaways.
It's a good gesture.
We do. I mean, I think that we, you know, we were thinking for the ash trees, we may be able to do something a little bit bigger for,
Like I said, you just have to,
so.
you don't know what the number
Yeah.
is, so,
I mean, there definitely have to be parameters to the program. I'm
Yeah.
just putting it out there because
Yeah, yeah.
it is, you know, we do have a number of them. in this-
Hundreds.
Yeah, and, you know, a lot of, there are street trees and there are also trees that individuals have on their property. So, just something to think about. It is definitely something that Sherry's gonna look at when she does her hazardous tree inventory. But, you know, eventually they're all gonna need to be taken down.
And I want to thank you for the hazardous tree thing. I know I've been complaining, talking, begging for years, but when we met, I don't know, whenever that was, early fall, I forget the time frame when we were talking, but dangerous trees is just something that, it's just in my head constantly. You know, I just know a dangerous tree, you know, hits a car, that dangerous tree is gonna cost us millions of dollars and possibly somebody's life. You know, it's just something that I'm just happy that it's become in the forefront and, you know, Sherry's in there working with you. So thank you, because
You're welcome.
I know that I've nagged you to death over it, so thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, it's definitely something we want to get done. I think the flip side of that is, you know, we're taking down trees, we're always thinking about where can we put trees?
Right.
So, you know, where can we put trees to replace the trees that are being taken down?
And
So-
you're limited because if it's county property or what, yeah, so there's a
Yeah.
limit to what can happen, but
And
the
it
first
probably
thing
also-
is get them down. That's the first order of
probably also
business.
depends on how many are in one location, which would cause probably some
Or
kind
over
of
the
water
roads-
issues.
Or over the roads like this, like a canopy. You
Be a
drive
big
fast,
part.
zoom.
Yeah, I mean, I just, you know, we definitely want to take out the hazardous trees. I just think, you know, for the community, if people see trees being taken down all the time and they don't see trees being planted, it's a very negative site.
I
you know,
understand the
so-
premise. We're very fortunate that we certainly have a lot of trees here in Howell. I will say that we're fortunate, but I know it's a monumental task. I would agree. But
You know,
thank you.
I think there's a happy medium in there somewhere.
Good luck.
So, 2022, we did the spring seedling giveaway, and then we did one in the fall, which they both went really well. So, working with DPW to find out if we're going to get the free seedlings again. The ones we did in the fall, Shade Tree actually purchased, and we got a very positive response just because of the way their appearance. So that's something we're considering doing. And we did offer shrubs, larger shrubs, and not just seedlings, so people who didn't have the space could actually get something if they
Right.
didn't have space to plant a tree. So we'll do the Arbor Day school with the Arbor Day program with the schools again and do seedlings for the kids, and then the Sojo Memorial tree planting. So that's Shade Tree, we're very busy. Green Team, 2022 will be recertification. We asked for an extension, so we did not have to do it in 2021. We were able to extend it to 2022. In January, we're going to kick off our plastic reduction campaign in conjunction with the PSENG grant that we received. So we'll be working on a speaker program. We're also talking about a trash art contest. Refillable water bottle station installation. We're looking forward to partnering with the school green teams and local businesses on communicating the plastic bag ban that's coming up in May. And last time I was here, we talked about collecting plastic bags. So I do have some more information on that. If we collect 500 pounds of plastic refuse, which includes plastic bags and plastic film in a 6-month span, so that's about 40,000 plastic bags, we can get a free plastic bench.
A plastic
Free
bench?
plastic bench
Yes.
made from the
Made.
bags?
Yes.
that we- Oh, that's pretty cool.
It looks nice. It looks nicer than it sounds.
It does look really
The
nice.
Girl Scouts did that, my niece did that in Florida. They collected all the caps, and then they made a bench out of all the caps. It was like amazing to look at, but it was a heck of a lot of caps.
Yeah, so 40,000 plastic bags is a lot of bags, and we can do those. They have a separate program for the schools, so the schools are considering doing their own program, and then as a community, we would do our own program, so. And then we are working with the county on 2 composting workshops that will be held in the spring.
I want to say, you have done an outstanding job, outstanding.
Thank you.
The best amount of updating and making areas of our town that were kind of looking not so great. You've actually been beautifying this town, and we should all thank you so much for that. I personally say thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and I want to thank, I have a great team of people on the Shade Tree Commission and the Green Team, and, whatever project we do, they're there, and they show up, and they come to the table with great ideas, so, and I want to thank everyone in council for your support, and for the town officials for responding to all of my thousands of emails and questions, and it's been a great learning experience, and I just thank everyone for bearing with me. But yeah, it's been my pleasure, and I'm glad we could do these projects for the community, and I think 22 would be an even better year. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I go back before we go to the next person, just quickly? I've been sitting here and kind of thinking about what Barbara was saying regarding the postcards that went out. Is there any way that we could add something to our website to explain that would be beneficial? A, B, is there maybe a possibility that we utilize our channel?
Sure.
That somebody can get that
I'll
information
look to add
out?
something to the channel. I know we post stuff regularly about the assessments. and
I think that might
the
be
background to it.
beneficial. And
So-
also, if we could add, maybe not right now, but when we start looking at the trees that we might be taking down, maybe we could somehow put out there that there are trees that are dangerous, they're basically almost dead. We're going to take those down, and we will replace them, so to kind of like circumvent people screaming, why are we taking stuff down and not adding? I'm just
Okay.
trying to be proactive instead of reactive on these 2 issues.
Or at least saying that they're being removed because they're dangerous.
Right.
And infested, which I
Right.
don't think people understand that part of it sometimes, so.
That's, yeah, just to give them that information, not that we're just tearing down a tree because
Yeah.
we feel like it. Thank you.
Mayor, can you make any type of comment with the senior center bulletin so that seniors won't panic and God forbid for sale because I'm going to run out of town with a taxi.
Okay, so I think you're asking if we could put something by the senior center regarding
Senior
this.
bulletin, anything
So-
for people who will panic, and I mean panic.
Maybe they could add to their letter.
Perfect idea. We have the letter from the senior center, so Brian, if you would, speak to Melanie, and Melanie will put it in the newsletter, so everybody that goes will have that.
Like also, so down to the villages, because these are
So,
large
so
amounts.
what we're, Barbara, what we're doing is going to put it out on a global basis for everybody in the town, so they'll know it. So we're gonna do the TV, we're gonna do the website, and we're gonna work with the senior center. So I think those are 3 ways. I think that should be reasonable, no?
Surrey Downs used 500 houses.
I-
Plus 671, I'm telling you, people are gonna panic.
I respect you. I understand what you're saying, and I think we're trying to kind of work on a plan for that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Dawn Van Brunt.
Hi, good evening. Dawn Van Brunt, 21 East Shenandoah Road. I just wanted to bring some
I
attention.
loved your table, by the way.
Thank you.
It's beautiful.
Thank you so much. I wanted to just bring some attention to the Monmouth Commerce Center property. Matt, you've been fantastic with communicating with me. They've been doing a lot of testing on the site, and as we discussed, the testing may take down some trees, but it was to be minimal and not very disruptive. I don't know if anybody has really been past the site, but it's pretty destroyed, just from what you can see from the roadway, and of course, I wouldn't dare walk into the property. So I don't know, Matt, if you could shed any light. I understand it's done now. I haven't seen any equipment.
Yeah, so the work did complete about a week and a half ago.
Right.
I personally walked the site with code enforcement. We do have, rights of access. We want to take a look at everything going on. They're doing test pitting work. It's part of due diligence for development, knowing the soil conditions, knowing drainage conditions. To do that, they need to have a pretty large excavator to dig test pits all the way down to groundwater. We saw that there were a few trees taken down. The majority of them were under 4 inches in size, which by our ordinance doesn't count as a removal. There were some that were larger. What we're doing is we're going to inventory the trees that were taken down. In any development application, there's going to be a woodlands management component. It's going to accommodate for whatever trees were removed. If it so happens that some of those trees that were removed aren't accounted for that, I have in the past on planning board and zoning board applications sent memos to the board and said, hey, this was a code enforcement issue beforehand, make sure these trees get counted, make sure we get replacement or the cost for replacement. So we are taking a look at that. They did not just clear cut a path or site. They really did try to maneuver around, and in some cases, they did have to take some trees down. We're going to inventory everything out there and make sure, probably within, a year, if we don't have another development application and it looks like the site's going to sit, we're going to reach out to the owner specifically and say, we need to remedy the violation. But if they go to the board, we'll remedy it through that process as well.
Great, excellent. And I did just want to see if there was any movement on the site from a legal aspect. I haven't received any updates in a very long time.
As far as I understand, it's under appeal. We have no new applications for development, and we're waiting.
We're just still in a You got it. All right, thank you so much, everyone. Have a lovely holiday.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.
Last on the list, but certainly not least, Mr. Barron?
Good evening, everybody.
Hi.
I'm Jerry Barron, 37th and Ellaway in Howe. I have 2 quick things. I know you guys have been here all day in meetings. I guess you had lots of fun, but anyway, I'm going to try and be fast. One thing I wanted to remind everybody, December 12th is going to be the last farmer's market.
Oh, yes, thank you for saying that.
It's been a long year, but it's the last one. It's from 10 to 3, just to publicize a little bit.
Next.
And I hope it's a lot warmer than November 12th was. I almost got frostbite on that day.
It snowed today.
We'll see. But 10 to 3.
3.
We added on an extra hour, it's 10 to 3. The next thing is, I know Lisa just mentioned recertification. I thought it might be nice if mayor council kind of directed Brian to warn directors and supervisors that come January, the green team is on the loose again. We're going to need 360 points this year to get silver. We want to go up in class.
Okay.
Last time we had 250, I believe, for bronze, but this time we want silver, so we need 360. So we have lots more information we need. Maybe you could just warn people that there will be requests
Get the list
made,
ready, Jerry.
starting in, excuse me?
Start getting that list together.
Yeah, well, starting in January, we're going to start, I know you guys are busy with the budget, but we're busy with a lot of things. And one is recertification, we want to get done by June. So we need 350 points, so we will be CCing you on every email we send everywhere, just to warn you, so you can warn people that we need lots of information, so, just to
I
warn
think you need to put something out there to say, watch out for Jerry Barron.
I will, and as in the past, just please be aware of their workload, their everyday workload that they have to maintain.
We'll try and give people like 3 weeks to get the information or something.
If I may, maybe you can come up with a list of the additional criterion that's needed to advance to the next level and share that with Brian, and then maybe Brian can then disseminate that to the appropriate people. Maybe it'll be more efficient that way. If you work with, I'm just saying, I think it might be easier for your staff, but it's on you. I'm just making a suggestion. Is that okay?
We'll work it
I
out,
mean,
I think, yeah. All right. Thank you, and that's all I have.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
At this point, there's no one else on the list. Oh, please, you.
Sorry, my town's a free-for-all, so there's no list.
May I have your name?
Yes, my name's Sheila Hatami. I'm an attorney. I represent Ann and Siavash Hatami. It's nice to meet you all. They have property on Yellowbrook Road, so I am here asking about the Resolution 21-380, which is the two Manzo LLC developers agreement. They're under the assigned contract from Elon Associates, which housing development was approved at the end of Yellowbrook Road. There were hearings 2014, 2015, 2016, the litigation, and the settlement is 2018. You all know the timelines, but the public might not. And I understand this for the third round. I wanted to know, I know the developers agreement can't be disclosed until it's signed and approved, but do we have a timeline on development, and is this going to look like what it was approved at the planning board?
Hi.
This is Mr. Bear.
Hi.
I do the
nice to meet you.
affordable housing attorney here. Well, in terms of the project being built, it has to be built in accordance with the plans and specifications that were presented to the planning board. So the developer's agreement requires that, but they would have to under the municipal land use law anyway. And then I think there's a provision which indicates that the project would have to be built within 5 years, so it's not an open-ended thing. They could always come back and ask for extensions either to the board or the council, but ultimately, right now, it's within 5 years.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. Take care. Tina Smilek, 33 Charles Street. Just a relative question. I'm looking at all the developers agreements that are on tonight's agenda. I think there's 4, 1 that we're going after and 3 that we're, what takes so long for a developers agreement to go through? Like, some of these are from 2006. The ones with the fountain was from 2005. We have a council voting on something that they weren't even a part of when they came through. I mean, what takes so long for developers agreements?
It's not so much the developers agreements, it's when the developer decides to move forward. I could tell you that the housing market right now has brought a lot of developments that normally had no interest in really building. what you can get for a market rate home has skyrocketed. Those projects are profitable again. That's why we're seeing them. I've asked a couple developers and attorneys this question over the last few months. That's the answer I've consistently gotten. The market supports it now.
So how long can a developer, like Elon or any of these, hold off until they build? Like, especially when it's part of an affordable housing, like, and they're not doing a developer's agreement, how long can they hold off until it's expired?
Well, it's sort of like two different questions. Under the municipal land use law, approvals are good for a certain amount of time, and the legislature basically extended land use board approvals when the economy was bad, so those sorts of things extended that. And in terms of the affordable housing piece of it, under our court's judgment of repose and compliance, the township just has to show that we're making best efforts to get, to move our projects along. This was approved as part of the judgment we got in 2020, so it's not in the terms of development. While the project is old, this part of it now, in terms of our third round approval, it's not that old, so
So before it was part of our second round approval, because this was in conjunction with the fountains, correct?
So this was
The 90s.
This was in the township's affordable housing plan in the second round. Then there was a lawsuit. This was long before my representation of Howell. There was a lawsuit challenging COA's second round approval of Howell's plan, which included this site. The appellate division reversed COA's approval. Then Elon, at the time, going back to the early 2000s, filed a builder's remedy litigation that was eventually settled by the township in 2007. So then it got tied up in all the iterations of COA's rules being accepted, approved, rejected, going in the Supreme Court, back to the appellate division. So the whole affordable housing process got slowed down because of what was going on statewide, but ultimately, this was included in our, as I said, our approved third round plan that the court just approved within the last year or so.
Is there a way we can do these developers agreements before they go to planning and zoning?
Well, no, typically the developer agreements, and even in my role as municipal attorney elsewhere, they come in after the land use board approvals, because what they do is, as a matter of contract, basically compel the developer to comply with all townships' rules, ordinances, land use board approvals, all of the conditions of the planning board or the zoning board, whichever it may be. That gets incorporated to a contract. It gets recorded against the property. So the developer's agreement is really ultimately the township or with the public entities' protection that the project is going to get built in accordance with the law and what was approved.
Okay. It's just frustrating looking at, it's like they came out of the woodwork here. We had the last one with the fountains, now we have this, and, how does council keep up with they have to read they have to go all the way back to 1990s and all? How do you keep up with that? How do you make a conscious decision on something you had nothing to do with? So, that's just my comment.
I actually agree with you. It's very difficult when you're sitting here and somebody approved a project 10, 15 years ago, and you're sitting down and you're looking at it and you're just not sure if it's the right project anymore, or is there any law changes but we, according to Mr. Howard, that we can't question that. Is that correct?
If they have their approval, they have their approval. If there's changes to zoning, then that would definitely kick them back to having to go get more relief. But in most cases, those projects can move forward. They have rights under those approvals. I mean, municipal land use law works in both ways. It protects the township from the developers, and it goes the other way too. So those developers have rights, and that's what they're.
I totally respect that, but it is still, when when something was approved, and then it's just a little.
Keep in mind, I'm in the same boat. A lot of these
get
things
it.
were
No,
approved
I
long
absolutely
before I've
understand.
been here. So,
Understood.
Especially with me and Mr. Clark, we're going through these resolutions from decades ago and settlements from decades ago and trying to get up to speed.
How often do you go through these?
Go through resolutions?
Developers agreements and all? Like, how did you find this one that, now we're going to charge them more money because they're not compliant?
Took research. So when they came and we started doing developers agreements are generally a draft template. There's very much 90% of it is just canned language that's in every developer's agreement. It took research into the resolution, took research into the settlement agreement, and into the history to see what representations have been made over the years. That's ultimately why you have the professionals to do that.
Okay, so you wouldn't normally go through, pull something out and say, let me look at this one. It's when they come and start wanting to do something.
When they need a developer's agreement, that's when we'll start
Okay.
drafting.
They can't start construction here, well, here in most municipalities until they have that agreement in place.
Now, like the last one with the fountains, they had an agreement in place in 2003, but now they're changing it now. Is that typical too? Is it that you could change? Like, if they approve these tonight and say they don't build, and 20 years down the road when, well, maybe you will be here, but maybe you won't, will that next council, so they
But-
be able to change it then?
That's not the Fountain situation. There was a 2003 settlement agreement, then they went before the planning board again and got new approvals based on that. So it was those approvals from 17 and 18 that were memorialized in that developer's agreement that was voted down. And what was different about that planning board resolution than some of them was it said the developer's agreement shall be signed if deemed necessary by council. So typically they're required. That one I think was a little bit different.
And to answer your question, if the project changes, they have to go back for board approval and we start the process all over.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Very informative.
Thank you. No.
Good evening. Mark Parisi, Two Castle Court, up for the trifecta tonight. Just to kind of piggyback on what Sheila and Tina were talking about with the Elon Developers Agreement, I was reading through the resolution and just wanted to point out one minor clerical error. It said that on the resolution that the planning board approvals were on August 18th, 2016. When I went to look at the minutes for that, it said that that meeting was canceled that night and that the approval was actually on September 1st, 2016. So, I mean, I don't know if you just want to maybe check that. I could be wrong, but that could be just a minor technical thing that can be fixed. But in reading, I had a couple questions. I'll direct them to council. I know that in past conversations about, the affordable housing, that the township was pretty good about negotiating either a 20 to 30% set aside. In this particular approval, I think it's 69 single-family homes and then 10 affordable units. So it's roughly 80 total units that are being put in over there, but yet we're only getting 10. Like, why aren't we getting 16 or 24 affordable units?
I believe for the same reason that Mr. Howard just said, has been approved, and that was the approved number.
Well, that was what was negotiated in the settlement back in 2007 with Elon, but I would point out that the developer is also paying the township Affordable Housing Trust Fund $15,000 for every market rate unit. So for 69 market rate units, that's $1,035,000. So the developer here is, A, giving the township 10 affordable housing units and over $1 million in its trust fund that the township could use for other affordable housing purposes.
Okay.
So it's actually a bigger, it's
No, I
not
mean,
in
that's a
units,
benefit,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
a big benefit.
As well as the
Yeah.
tree fund, you said 280,000.
Right.
And
the
then
light?
off-site
What about the
improvements
light?
on another 100,000.
248,000 for the tree fund.
What about the light?
Well, right, that's just what matters.
100,000 for pro rata share contribution to a traffic light at Route 33 and Yellow Brick Road.
Okay, because that was my next question, because when I was reading through the minutes, I know that George Harms had objected to it, and there was something in the minutes about how, he wanted them to pay their pro rata contribution towards a traffic light. Then there was some conversation with, I know Mr. Gutierrez here, about how basically maybe we can address that after it's built out and we do a warrant to see, what's going on with
Right
the light.
now, the applicant has agreed to pay $100,000
Okay.
towards the traffic light.
Okay, all right, I think that's good for the public to know. The only other thing that I had is that when I was looking through the minutes was that it showed that that Elon initially requested an extension on their approval. So they got their approval in 2016, then sometime in 2018, they requested an extension, then they withdrew that extension. And it's my understanding with the land use law, you get 2 years after your approval, and then you got to come back for, I think, what, 3 one-year extensions for a total of 5 years to build out. So I didn't know that because there's affordable involved in this, if, somehow they're granted like a waiver from having to get extensions for their approvals or anything like that, because it would seem that if they never got an extension for their approval may have expired. And then I went onto the DEP site to look at all the Permanent Extension Act, and I didn't see anything regarding their planning board approval. They got an extension for some type of like soil testing extension, but they didn't get an extension for the actual planning board approval itself. So if, in fact, their approval expired and they never got an extension either through the planning board or through the Permit Extension Act, should the governing body be voting on a developer's agreement that may have planning board approvals that expired? I don't know the answer. I'm just asking the question.
Honestly, the approval, well, I don't think the approval's expired, but I'd have to look back at the record to confirm why I think that. But B, even if the governing body approves the developer's agreement, if the approval's expired under law, then they wouldn't be able to approval of developer's agreement.
Become like null and void?
Well, because they would need, this doesn't bless, the governing body doesn't have the ability to approve the extension of a planning board approval. So what I'm saying is by approving this agreement, they wouldn't then be giving the developer something they wouldn't otherwise have.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come up to have a discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing no one else, I would like to close this portion of the meeting. At this time, I would like a motion on the consent agenda items.
All right. Make the motion to move Resolution 21-348 through 21-380, excluding 21-356 and 21-357, because they need a separate vote.
I'd like to pull two things out, if I don't know. Mr. Harris, how do I?
Which two?
Okay, I'd like to pull out for a separate vote R21-364 and actually, and R21-365, please, because I'd like to have some discussion on those two items.
I'm gonna see if this is correct. I believe that the motion on the table is to move 348 through 380, exclusion of 356, 357, 364, and 365. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So 356 and 357 are not a part of the consent agenda. They will be voted on separately within themselves.
That's fine.
So there's no need to exclude them.
Okay.
So you're going to be voting on 348 through 363, 366 through 376, and then 378, 379, and 380. Those are the resolutions you're considering. Yours will be separate.
That's fine, so I can second. Yes, okay. I'm going to second Councilman Bonavich's motion.
So moved by Councilman Bonovich, seconded by Councilwoman Richmond. Is there any further discussion? Councilman Bonovich?
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond?
Yes.
And Mayor Berger?
Yes, sir.
And the consent agenda, as stated, has been approved. So first, let's consider resolution number 21-364, which is a resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Howell authorizing the settlement of certain litigation involving the Township Congregation Kalel, Inc. et al. Versus the Township of Howell, New Jersey et al. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion for Resolution 21-364.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I would like some history on this, because obviously this was something that was way before my time on council. I didn't know that Mr. Cachero's here, so there's some controversy. Mr. Kachara, you come up here, please, and shed some light on how this came to be and all the controversy surrounding this, please? Thank you for coming, by the way.
No problem, Mike.
We weren't letting you go home.
I know. I think he was napping over there.
I can't speak as to controversy, but I can
yes.
speak certainly as to history.
Please.
So the subject site was originally approximately 10 acres. And there was an application that was made to the zoning officer at that time by the owner of the property, Congregation Howell, to get a zoning certificate which would permit a yeshiva as well as dormitories for students and faculty housing. That request for a zoning certificate was denied based upon the township's ordinance, which does not permit on-site faculty housing or dormitories. The yeshiva, Congregation Howell, then exercised their rights under the municipal land use law. Under Section 70A of the municipal land use law, you can appeal the decision of a zoning officer to the zoning board. The zoning board is the body that has the exclusive jurisdiction to do that. So the application contained two distinct parts. Part one was an appeal of the zoning officer's decision. Part two was a request that in the event that the zoning board affirmed the zoning officer's decision, that the applicant would make a request for use variance relief along with preliminary and final site plan approval in a bifurcated fashion to get approval for the use that they wanted. So they proceeded to the zoning board, and they had a few public hearings, and the zoning board first voted to affirm the decision of the zoning officer. So the zoning board determined that, in their view, the ordinance did not permit faculty housing or dormitories. They did not make any decision at all with regard to whether a use variance would be granted or not. And they actually set up a subsequent meeting date for the applicant to return in order to present an application in support of the use variance. Rather than show up for that portion of the application, there was a complaint that was filed in the federal courts. The complaint asserted, well, first of all, it named the governing body as well as the zoning board as defendants. And the complaint was inclusive of many purported violations of many different statutes. Prime among them was the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act. There was an argument that they asserted that they were discriminated against as being part of the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community, and that was what led to the decision of the zoning board, and that was unlawful. They similarly made that argument with regard to the federal and state civil rights acts, the Fair Housing Act, because people were going to be living on site, and also in the prerogative writ context, which is how you would challenge a land use decision in our state laws. They also challenged the underlying ordinance, which prohibited the construction of faculty housing and dormitories on site, and they made the same arguments that the ordinance was unconstitutional and discriminatory. There was a motion that was filed on behalf of the governing body, which the zoning board joined in on, seeking to dismiss the complaint in its entirety. We argued that because the applicant had not proceeded through the process of seeking use variance relief, they hadn't been denied any real rights because the zoning board didn't get to determine one way or the other whether it was going to grant approval. All that happened was a decision that the zoning officer had properly interpreted the ordinance. Portions of the complaint were dismissed by Judge Wolfson at the federal level. Other portions of the complaint remained in place. We went into mediation with the plaintiff. Judge Serpentelli was appointed the mediator. Judge Serpentelli, retired judge, one of the most respected judges reputation-wise in New Jersey. The parties met multiple times in order to determine whether there was some proposal for the site that would meet the goals and expectations of all parties. The process kind of twisted and turned, and there was a lot of back and forth about what could be located on the property. During the process of negotiations, Zev Rothschild, who was the principal of Congregation Howe and also Zebra Holdings, which was the other plaintiff, came down with COVID and actually passed away. So there was a portion of time where there was nobody left to negotiate with because the estate hadn't determined who was going to be running the two businesses that were the plaintiffs. Eventually, Zev's wife became the president of both Zebra Holdings and Congregation Howe. So there was an opportunity to restart the negotiations. But that was a long period of time where there was just, waiting to see from a procedural and legal standpoint who had the ability to speak for the plaintiffs. So once that happened, she had a different way of negotiating than Zev did. I don't put, I don't score either one of them, as better or worse. It was just different. And in the process of discussing possible settlements with Zev's wife, who I apologize, I don't remember her first name at the moment, it became apparent that there was an opportunity for the township to purchase the property and that there wouldn't be a yeshiva there or faculty housing or a dormitory at all. When we looked and assessed the possibility of moving in that direction, it became apparent that different entities that Zev had controlled had purchased an additional 10 acres of property in and around the bordering area. So what I didn't want to happen was, there was a settlement with the 10 acres, and then the same project was just moved across the property line, and the fight would replay itself. So we spoke and negotiated, and the original 10 acres expanded to roughly 20 acres and included all of the properties in that area that were under the control of various Zev Rothschild-controlled entities. So the project that we were looking at and the land mass we were looking at moved from approximately 10 acres to approximately 20 acres. In further researching just the area and the implications of a purchase, it also became apparent to us that it actually fit in with Monmouth County's Greenway project. These were areas that the county had identified as being useful to creating a greenway that, linked up various portions of the county, and, people could walk or bicycle or have passive recreational opportunities. So it was not only an opportunity to settle the case, it was involving property that had been actually identified as being helpful to preserving open space and, creating the greenway. So we proceeded in that fashion, and there were a lot of technical issues we had to deal with. For instance, we wanted to make sure there was a due diligence period to assess any environmental issues associated with the property. And there were other aspects of the settlement we thought were important. For instance, at the apparent behest of the plaintiff, the Justice Department began an investigation of the township with regard to alleged anti-Semitic or anti-ultra-Orthodox activities. Part of this settlement agreement, the plaintiff recognizing the good faith that has been exercised by the township and all of you throughout the process, doesn't merit a investigation anymore. So they will be sending a letter to the Justice Department requesting that investigation be terminated based upon the good faith efforts that you all have made. Justice Department doesn't have to, but I think it's pretty persuasive in terms of the lack of controversy that would exist anymore. So that is also part of the settlement agreement. Plaintiff also agreed to withdraw any challenge to the township's zoning ordinances. That particularly includes the ordinance that bans faculty housing and dormitories associated with the school. So that they would not be able to challenge, not just in the context of this site, but anywhere within the municipality. So that we felt was also a beneficial aspect of the settlement. I think it's also important to understand and place in context the history of the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, which we in short call RLUPA. RLUPA has what they call a fee-shifting provision, which means that if the plaintiffs won any aspect of their case at all, they didn't have to win everything. If they won anything, the statute requires the town to pay their attorney's fees. And these are attorney's fees based upon other cases where municipalities have lost. They're usually somewhere around $400 an hour, and they go into the millions of dollars in terms of attorney's fees. So, you know, in analyzing it, you never know what's going to happen when you go to court. No matter how great your case is, you just don't know what's going to happen. And, you know, there was an assessment that we brought to this body as to, you know, how it wished us to continue, how it wished to spend money, if money were going to be spent, you know, whether that be in purchase of property or running the risk of having to pay, you know, multiple millions of dollars in attorney's fees and possible damages associated with that as well. And my position is still that the town did nothing wrong. It didn't even get an opportunity to do something wrong because there was no vote, there was no presentation on the application. But I can just tell you, looking at the track record of RLUPA, not just in New Jersey, but across the country, it is very liberally construed in favor of plaintiffs. And I thought that that was important information that this body would take into account, and it did take it into account. Important in this settlement also, it's very explicit that the town is not saying that it violated anybody's rights, and there's a provision where the plaintiff agrees that it's not a prevailing party, that it was not a catalyst of change. These are just terms mutually agreed upon. So it had a long history. There was deaths, you know, with regard to COVID. There were radical changes in the method and tactics of the plaintiff in their negotiations. We modified our position to, you know, take that into account. It took a period of time, but, you know, there will be nothing built on this, not only the piece of property that was the original portion of the application, but on the 20 acres, except for what the council and the municipality may wish to use it for itself. So there's multiple portions at play here. One is the resolution to accept the settlement, and there is also a bond ordinance to finance the land acquisition, and an ordinance that permits the land acquisition. So while certainly, you know, it's not a settlement that, you know, everyone may be wildly enthusiastic about, I think the result of the settlement, you know, which is no development, if you want, the preservation of the property, or you could determine how you wish to use the property, no finding of fault or admission of liability, and the plaintiff also admitting that they're not a prevailing party or a catalyst of change. I feel it was the best that the town could do in the context of a settlement, you know, which had to be agreed upon by both parties. And I feel compelled, you know, publicly to thank each one of you, because you asked excellent questions along the way. You were each one of you, in terms of comments and questions, helped to craft language. So I'm very thankful to the interplay that we all had, and it's my recommendation that the settlement be approved.
If I may, I'd like to ask, I know there's a very big number associated with the purchase of this property. I think it would be beneficial for members that are here and members of the town to understand just what the portion from Howell, like, so if you could break out.
Sure. So what we did was we looked at the 20 acres collectively, and the town had its own appraiser appraise the value of the 20 acres. The plaintiff had their own appraiser appraise the value of that acreage. When you're doing an appraisal, it's not based upon what's there, it's based upon the highest and best use of the property. So our appraiser took that into account and found it was $8,020,000 was the value of the property. That also took into account the fact that sewer would have to be extended to the area and water, as well as some off-site improvements. So those portions of it were deducted from the original determination that they made. The plaintiffs came up with a higher number, but in negotiations, they abandoned their own appraisal and agreed to accept the township's appraisal in total. But again, it went from 10 acres to 20 acres, and it's based upon the highest and best use, not the existing use. So there was, certified professionals went out and took a look at it. The ones that we hired, this was the number that they came up with. And again, it was modified based upon the extension of utilities and off-site traffic improvements that would be necessary on the site. So this was the number that was arrived at.
I think what I think would be important, there are three funding sources for this property. Would it be appropriate to have that discussion on what Howell itself is actually?
At this moment in time,
I'm asking, I'm not sure if it's appropriate to have the discussion or
well,
not.
I'll just, for purposes of understanding at this moment in time where the money's coming from, certainly that's a valid question. At this moment in time, the financing of the acquisition is being funded by the municipality itself. However, there need to be some subsequent discussions and decisions made. So, for instance, if you wanted it to be a Green Acres property, there's a process to go to Green Acres at the state, and there is money that is available there. I say discussion because there's a lot of rules and restrictions on what you can do with Green Acre property. So you would need to be comfortable as a governing body that, those were rules and regulations that you would want to follow. Secondly, as I stated, the county's master plan identifies this as property that would be compatible with its county greenway program. We've had some conversations with the county, and that can certainly still be pursued to obtain funding from those sources. The challenge that the town has is that all of these things take time, and the judge is not going to give us that amount of time to settle the case. So at this moment in time, it's coming from the municipality. There are other options available, again, whether it be Green Acres, whether it be through the county, whether it be through open space funding sources that you have independently at the town. All those options are available, but the bond ordinance right now is just for the municipality to acquire the property.
I'm not sure if I'm asking the question right or if I shouldn't be asking the question. So, Mr. Clark, maybe, we had a discussion, and there are three, I believe, and you tell me if it's not up for discussion, and I will just, but I believe that we have three sources that are going to help purchase. Is that, no?
No, that's not accurate.
Okay.
We are getting, the township is funding the purchase price by itself of $8.02 million. There are other monies that are wrapped up in the settlement, far less than that. There may be about $600,000, and we are getting money for those. But the vast majority of the funding comes from the bond, which we have to pay for.
I just need, I think that,
The non-property portion of it is being funded in its majority by the township's insurance and excess insurance carrier.
That was a question.
that was my question.
I got there eventually.
Thank you. Anybody?
Yeah, so I did read the complaint, and again, it was before my time, so that's why I wanted to read up on it and see what was behind all of this. While I am a very big proponent of open space, the way we got here, I'm not really crazy about the idea of what was mentioned in the complaint. I know, Ron, this is not thing you can really touch upon. I did ask our attorney here about it. My concern is if and when we do settle this litigation, what are we setting forth going forward with all these, I guess, accusations about anti-Semitic, comments that has gotten us here, and all that money we spent litigating this? I just worry about the comments that are posted on certain members of up here's old social media pages, some of the current social media pages that has been mentioned in the complaint. If we let this go, what happens down the road? Is setting a precedence? I'm not really sure. But the fact that we're, letting this go for the fact of saving 20 acres of open space and forgetting the fact that some anti-Semitic comments, and not just some, quite a few, have gotten us here and put us in this position. I'm not really crazy about that. So I don't know if Mr. Clark or you would like to elaborate on that a little bit more, but...
Well, I just want to make clear that there were elements of the complaint that didn't deal with comments that were made by the township council members at all. They were statements that were allegedly, because I have not seen, during the process, original copies of anything. They were allegations that
I
were
did say that.
contained in the complaint that were on various social media sites. There's not a whole lot that a town council can do to shut that down. People have a right, a First Amendment right to say what they want to say in the public. Unfortunately, there have been some Arlupa cases, particularly in the planning and zoning board context, where judges have actually come down on a planning or zoning board for not vociferously rejecting with enough fervor some of those comments that were made. So, it's an unfortunate way that the law has been interpreted in certain instances, so there is an impact. But again, I don't know what we can do, and frankly, as a constitutional matter, I don't think you can or should, limit what people are saying. But there is an impact. With regard to council members, I never went back to look at anything that was in social media for individual council members, so I can't really comment upon it. So in terms of precedent, I would say that the precedent, whether you engaged in something or didn't engage in something, whether you were a couple of steps back observing, whether you were part of the process, I think that the lesson here is that we all need to, whether it be council members, professionals, members of the public, just keep in mind that, what you say has impacts. And I would say to everybody in all of those classes to keep that in mind when making statements for everybody to read. These are the real world consequences. Everyone has a right to make the statements, but there are consequences, legal consequences to those statements, particularly for the way that a town can operate. And again, you have limited ability to control a lot of those comments, but that would be my observation, that everyone just kind of needs to take a deep breath and review what you're going to say before you press the return button or whatever the appropriate button is now.
Before you hit send.
Yes.
Send button.
Yeah, I will echo what Ron says. I mean, you know, and I'll go a little bit further. There's 10 pages of allegations about various comments that were made by various groups in the town, page after page after page after page, 10 pages. It's in the complaint. The complaint's a public document. Anybody who may want to see it can see it. It's disgusting. It's wrong. We have to do better as a town. Some of those sites are still up. They're still active. There's not a lot we can do about some of them. You know, like I said, there's also a citation to an article in the Atlantic about affordable housing in New Jersey that makes mention of a specific Howell website, Facebook page. So there's a lot, and Ron is right. There's a First Amendment issue, but people, especially on council, have to be better, have to do better. Whether that's on their Facebook pages, campaign rhetoric, you name it. It's ridiculous in a lot of ways that we're in this position. And it probably could have been avoided in some ways. And the town is now bonding for $8 million to settle a case. You know, we're getting 20 acres of open space, but that money probably could have been used for a lot of other things too.
And I guess that's what my point was, and I just wanted to be clear, because, again, there's a lot of other projects we'd like to do with the $8 million and, you know, the money that we're spending on litigation and lawyer fees, and, you know, everybody has a little bit of blame up here. Not me, though, because I wasn't here. But I just don't, I'm not happy about it. I understand what we have to do to protect the township, but there's people that don't take responsibility, and it's unfortunate. So I just wanted to put it on the record. And again, I know Joe Clark had mentioned the complaint, 10 pages of Councilman Bonovich and Howell happenings, and it's all in here.
You know what? My name is not in there.
Oh, okay.
Howell Strong
Howell
is in
Strong?
there, West Farms,
That's
those
West
are groups,
Farms?
listen.
Okay.
There's 60,000 people in this town. You can't control your own comments. Try and contain 60,000.
I'm not costing the township $8 million,
You can't
Mr.
contain your own
Bonovich.
comments.
I am not yet.
You can't contain your own comments. Stop
But,
this.
excuse me, is that-
I wasn't up here, you weren't up here.
That's right.
The only person that was
wanna
up
make
here
sure.
was on the zoning board, was Evelyn O'Donnell. You know what? You know what?
Okay.
You want to Oprah and talk about things?
I'll openly talk about things,
Yeah, well,
absolutely. That's why
I-
we're here, right?
I guess her
Transparency.
emails
You're
are
all about
openable, too.
transparency all the time.
Because I know you open my emails like on a regular.
Yeah, I
So,
do.
Miss Snoop.
And actually, I don't
Miss
really
Snoop.
have, really? I
But,
have to do my own homework. I don't
you
have
know
other
what?
people doing my homework for me. I do my
know
own
what?
research and I ask my own questions.
Good for you, but
And again,
don't
I
drop
did
my
not
name.
count-
I'm not in that complaint.
You're not? Okay. I have a copy if you'd like one. I've made 4 copies for everybody.
You know what? In that Atlantic,
I know the rag, right?
yeah, you
Yeah.
know what? It says I live in a cul-de-sac in a
I know what it
mansion.
says, John.
Furthest thing from the truth, come to my house, 16 Firestone. You want to believe that article? You want to believe the Atlantic?
But you believe all the other articles?
It's infotainment.
Wait a minute.
So stop it.
I don't
know where you're
understand. I don't
going.
understand that it works, it doesn't go both ways. I don't understand. You guys sit up here and beat the crap out of me and Evelyn O'Donnell every
Who's
which
you
day
guys?
till Sunday.
Who's you guys?
Yes, excuse me.
You guys, who's you guys?
Absolutely. We're the majority. It was 2-2 right now.
Who's you guys?
You
The
and
Atlantic?
Ma-
I'm the Atlantic, you're
No,
the
how about
Atlantic?
the APP and all the Facebook
not the
groups
APP
and all the
either.
Facebook groups that beat the crap out of Evelyn
That's
and I.
not me
Oh,
either.
really? But you don't stop it either.
You know what?
So $8 million.
Wait a second.
$8 million.
Excuse me for 1 second.
You know what? Maybe
There's
those groups
blame on
just
both
like you
sides
better
here
than you.
because
That's
there's
all.
plenty of websites out there about me that I don't put anything on Facebook, any social media. I am not available there. But my name, and there is all kinds of crap associated with you and whomever else. So you too must
Not costing
be
the
careful.
township $8 million.
You too must be careful
Not
on how you
costing the
treat
township.
people.
Yes.
It's
You know what?
about how you
And
treat
Mr.
$8 million
Cucciaro
parks we
in
can get fixed.
the town.
Parks we can have fixed for
Mr.
$8 million.
Mr. Cucciaro said it very well.
Yes, he did.
That zoning board did not control the members of the public, and that's why they're in that complaint. And that's what, at that point, the zoning board should have controlled that. Now, lessons learned.
I hope lessons
Zoning
learned.
board, planning board, us as well, need to control it. And what
Agreed.
you're doing again is you're fueling a fire. Bury it.
I have a question, and I have a question for Mr. Kuchera. So, in the complaint that I read, it does mention a very zesty social media program
Website?
that is in existence today, has a huge following. So you're right, we can't control what they said. Unfortunately, what they said did fuel the issue, and we have no recourse in saying to them, please stop allowing anti-Semitic remarks. Although when you own a website, I thought you had some type of control. Okay, that's what I thought. However, maybe we need to start sending letters to the website
It's
owners.
Facebook groups and pages, there's no control.
No, this is an owned website.
Call
I'm
Mark
referring to.
Zucker, Ms. O'Donnell.
There's no
This
control.
is, okay, let me try this again.
Maybe,
So
yeah.
when this happens, and we know it's an issue, and it's probably going to cost us money, and God knows, 8 million plus, it has, maybe we can then, when we see things that are so
Egregious.
egregious, in that anti-Semitic remarks were really, really bad. I mean, can we send a letter to this, this group and say, please cease and desist, please remove this? We've had issue where we've been sued.
There's no issues right now. You're bringing it up. There's no issues.
Well, the issue.
And on the other side of it, I'm going to say that there are people talking and talking about everybody else on social media.
If we don't
and
take
so
the
people in the
opportunity,
town don't
as
have
I
the
still talk
opportunity.
because I still have the floor.
You have the floor, yeah.
If,
All right. Thank you, Mr.
If we-
Cucchiaro. Thank you.
Yes, thank
You
you
explained
very
it
much.
very well.
so again, I will say this. I think we should send letters to the websites that continue to do things that are so egregious. We have no other option. It costs us a lot of money. When elections come around and people are politicizing that they're going to keep groups of people out, and again, that's all over. We cost ourselves a fortune, and it's on the backs of the taxpayer, which, by the way, we're all one of them. So to think that there's no blame, there's blame, we just don't know how to punish it, apparently. So to try to shut
I'm just asking a question, may I? You're saying shut down free
No,
speech.
no, I didn't say
When
that.
in here, free speech is all I hear.
Let's try this again. I'm not saying shut down free speech. I'm saying, and I'll say it again, when things go to such a degree of depravity, and we know that this is going, our emails went to the Department of Justice. This was so bad, the Department of Justice came in and took our stuff.
Took your
As
stuff.
a council.
Yeah.
But yours, well, now that you sit here, they may be looking at yours next, who knows?
Go ahead.
But my point is that we have to do something, whether it's urge people by letter, request that they pull these pages that are obviously, anti-Semitism is no different than promoting a Nazi. Murdering groups of people, whatever. I just think that we have a responsibility, and I'm not saying free speech is free speech, but they also have to temper it. There's free speech to a degree, but if I threaten to kill somebody, I'll probably get punished. I know if it was the president, I would be punished. There just has to be some kind of responsibility. Everybody that lives here, we're adults, we pay money, and we're paying a lot more money now because of this. And to think that things that we do or say, or more importantly, what we don't do to try to cut this down, I think now the blame comes back to us because we haven't. If we go in front of a judge and we've made no attempt to stop this, no attempt whatsoever, by letter, whatever the case, saying, please stop promoting this on your page.
No,
A judge looks at stuff
if we
and
see
he's
that
fine.
in town and if we know the people that are saying it, yeah, we should be saying something, of course. And if there's if we have some down the road, if there's a zoning board or planning board and it gets out of hand like that, they need to control that room. That's it.
So I'm going to say it's not just an anti-Semitic issue. That's the issue for this specific discussion. But there's plenty of stuff that's going out on the internet from members of the council who are attacking other people in the town, people on the council. That also, in my opinion, promotes negativity and hate.
That may well be the case, but that doesn't cost the taxpayer $8 million. I'll call the question.
So it's unimportant then.
I'm calling the question.
So it's unimportant then.
But I don't
my
think,
question.
Mayor, that's what she's saying. I think she's
I
saying there's
asked the
blame.
question.
I understand that, but you're...
I didn't get an answer.
That's not important.
She did answer you. You just didn't like the answer.
Everyone got their point across.
Thank you,
Let's move on.
Councilman.
Can we please
Yes.
move forward?
Thank you, Ron Kuchera. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Are you ready for the vote?
Sure.
That's why I called the question.
Mr. Bonovich?
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell?
Yes?
Councilwoman Richmond?
Yes.
Mayor Berger? Resolution 364 has passed.
Make the motion for Resolution 21-365, and Councilman Richmond wants some comment on this, so she wants some feedback from, I guess, Mr.
Yes,
Howard?
thank you, Council. Yes, yes, yes.
Is there a second?
See, I can read
Thank
through
you, thank you. Oh, I'll make a second, yes. I just wanted some conversation regarding, if I may, Mayor. This is Soldier Memorial. Mr. Howard, if you could please just shed a little light on the Taj Mahal of Soldier Memorial. I think that's what Councilman Bonovich had called it once
Yes.
before, when it was over $1 million, and we kind of came back as a council.
1.2 to
Was it
6.5.
Yeah, so we kind of came back as a council saying, let's think about this. We're not going to spend $1 million on a bathroom and a concession stand. Council came together, and we went back to, I think, Matt or the manager, and asked if we could do something a little less expensive, and this is where we're at, I think.
Yeah, so I requested some proposals from some of our consultants, and ultimately I've picked one. It's just a design proposal right now, so we're not getting into the awarding for construction or construction services, but it includes a concept phase where we'll get some plans, initial drawings to guide the consultant in what we want, be able to see what a product will look like, permit phasing, and then final design. It also has some bid, for when we go out to bid for construction, some services. So we're working on a reduced budget. We're working on an accelerated timeline, trying to use grant money that's been given to us. And this is the first step. This is just the design. Like I said, there's a concept phase, so we'll get input throughout, and hoping to put together a product. So we're looking at prefab buildings, potentially different types of construction that will lower the cost, and the building will be smaller. The previous one was much larger. It included a concession stand. I had an idea to remove the concession stand for various reasons, and to potentially create a food truck staging area in the park that we could create ordinances, regulate, license, have fees, and potentially have food trucks, because I get questions all the time about how we get food trucks in town, and we have a strict ordinance on it, but this is a perfect example where maybe we create an ordinance, we can manage it, create some revenue, and instead of having to maintain, operate, and inventory a concession stand, almost somebody else does it, but the residents get the service. So this proposal, we're hoping to get a restroom facility and utility areas and a storage area for some of the leagues, as well as seating.
So
covered
do you
seating.
have a roundabout cost of what this is going to cost? And you said that there's some money coming in from
So the
grant?
total budget we're working under is about $650,000. 250,000 of that would be grant money from.
And 250 from open space, or the balance would be open
Balance
space?
would
The
be open
balance,
space.
yeah, the balance. Okay. I think that's much better than $1.something million.
Yeah,
So
well, it's not going to cost the taxpayers another dime.
Exactly.
So,
You're not going to do the food trucks, or you are going to still?
No,
do-
so the food trucks would replace the concession
Yeah.
area. The food truck idea
That's a great idea.
is not even included in this proposal. It's something that we'll just do separately. It's probably the scale of a project that DPW could do. It's a matter of creating a gravel area, maybe providing some electric hookups, some other infrastructure that the food trucks will need, and we
But
could
then
just do
would
that
we
on our
need
own.
to still build the concession stand?
We're not doing the concession
No,
stand.
Yeah.
The concession stand is being removed in place of, and we'll do the food trucks instead. But what we're doing is the restrooms and covered seating so that there's an interplay between those services.
I do have a question regarding, we talked about lights over there as well. So I know we have the art money, and I know it could be used for sewer, but if we kind of reverse that, could we maybe talk about getting lights? I had put Mr. Geegan in touch with a resident who works on lights for other facilities. So I think lights, obviously, if we're minimizing and we can use some art money, and we're doing one nice big project, that would be kind of a nice idea. Yes and no, something to think about?
No, so we have a grant money that was awarded for the restrooms.
But we also
and
talked
concession
about-
stand.
Yeah.
The fact we're scaling back to just restrooms, we're
Right.
still within the scope of that. To try and switch that to lights right now, I think it'd be a heavy lift because we're already well extended past the deadline for this grant.
No, I think what,
Yeah.
That
I
can
think
be
what
a
we're trying to
step-
say is that we had one meeting and there was some money that we didn't use in some other parks or whatever.
Yeah.
To shift that to lights,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah, thank you, Councilman. Yeah, okay, just something to consider going forward while we're in the midst of this project.
The utility area within the building will have, is meant to house future infrastructure.
Great.
For lights.
I think the sporting teams, organizations would love that. Okay, that's all, I'm ready to vote. I just wanted to get that out there.
May I have a motion?
I think we have one there.
365 was properly moved by Councilman Bonovich and seconded by Councilwoman Rich.
So can we roll?
Mr. Bonovich?
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond?
Yes.
And Mayor Berger?
Yes.
Resolution 21-365 is passed. Next for your consideration is 21-356, resolution canceling 2021 current fund and sewer utility appropriations, prior year's general capital improvement authorization balances for the Township of Howell. Is there a-
I'll make a motion to approve 21-356.
Second,
Moved by Councilwoman O'Donnell, seconded by Councilman Bonovich. Mr. Bonovich?
yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
Yes, sir.
And next for your consideration is 21-357, resolution providing for appropriation transfers in the 2021 municipal budget pursuant to NJSC 48:4-5, Township of Howe, County of Monmouth, State of New Jersey. Is there a motion?
Make the motion to pass R-21-357.
I'll second.
Moved by Councilman Bonovich, seconded by Councilwoman Richmond. Councilman Bonovich?
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
Yes, sir.
Resolution 21-357 has passed. There are no ordinances for public hearing and adoption, so we will go into the introduction of new ordinances. First is ordinance 21-32, which is authorizing the acquisition of property designated as Block 2.15, Lot 55, on the official tax map of the Township of Howell, more commonly known as 79B Western Drive, Howell, New Jersey, 07731.
I'll make a motion to introduce 02132.
Second,
Moved by Councilwoman O'Donnell, seconded by Councilman Bonovich. Is there any discussion?
since introduction.
Thank you, John.
Correct. Ready for the vote?
Yes.
Councilman Bonovich?
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond?
Yes.
And Mayor Berger?
Yes, sir.
Ordinance 2132 has been properly introduced. All of these ordinances will have a public hearing and possible adoption on December the 14th. Next is ordinance 2133, which is ordinance setting forth and amending and supplementing the salary range schedule for the salaries of certain officers and employees of the Township of Howell. Is there a motion?
A motion to introduce 02133.
Second,
Moved by Councilwoman O'Donnell, seconded by Councilman Bonovich. Is there any discussion? Ready for the vote?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Bonovich?
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond?
Yes.
And Mayor Berger.
Yes, sir.
And ordinance 2133 has been properly introduced. Next is ordinance 21-34, which is authorizing the acquisition of lands from Zebra Holdings II LLC and River Avenue Associates LLC for open space in the Township of Howell, known as Block 69, Lots 5, 5.01, 6, 7, and 8, containing approximately 20 acres on Ford Road. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to move ordinance 0-21-34.
second,
Moved by Councilwoman Richmond, seconded by Councilman Bonovich. Is there any further discussion? Councilman Bonovich?
yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond?
Yes.
And Mayor Berger.
Yes, sir.
And ordinance 2134 has been properly introduced. Next is ordinance 21-35, which is a bond ordinance providing for the acquisition of real property, appropriating $8,100,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $7,616,000 in bonds and notes to finance a portion of the cost thereof, authorized in and by the Township of Howe, County of Monmouth, New Jersey. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to move ordinance 0-21-35.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Richmond, seconded by Councilman Bonovich. Is there any discussion? Councilman Bonovich?
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
Yes, sir.
An ordinance 21-35 has been properly introduced. And finally is ordinance 21-36, which is an ordinance of the Township of Howe, County of Monmouth, State of New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 139-8 of the Township Code entitled Towing and Storage. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to introduce 02136.
Second?
Moved by Councilwoman O'Donnell, seconded by Councilwoman Richmond. Any discussion? Councilman Bonovich?
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond?
Yes.
And Mayor Berger?
Yes.
And ordinance 21-36. And that concludes all of the business on the agenda for your consideration this evening.
Thank you. At this point, it is 9:32. We're going to close the meeting in a minute. I just wanted to mention that the next meeting date is Tuesday, December 14th. The regular meeting will commence at 7 p.m. Also, I just wanted to mention, I do love getting mail at home. My name, though, is Teresa with an H, T-H-E-R-E-S-A. So in case you want to send anything to my house, I'd appreciate the correct spelling. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a wonderful evening.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And this meeting is adjourned.